we'd like to get started. If everybody could find a seat, please. Do I need to use my teacher? Can we have everybody find a seat, please? We would like to get started on our meeting. Thank you. All right, we're excited to have so many people here to join us tonight. We'd like to start this is our board meeting, 7 o'clock meeting, March 12th of 2024. We'd like to start by indicating who's here. Julie, why don't you go first?
Julie Jackson.
Kim Chandler.
Connie Burgess.
Chris Wynn.
Karen Winder.
Clark Nelson.
Todd Hauber. Rich Nye.
And Nicole McDermott. All right, we are going to start off with introductions. Do we have anybody from our PTA here? Thank you for being here. Our GA, just you tonight. I mean, not just you. Thank you for being here, Michelle. We are delighted to have you. GAEOP. And you're the only one, thank you.
Our boards are smaller tonight.
We are delighted to have you, no matter, even if it's just one of you. So, GESPA, do we have any GESPA representation? They are attending online, thank you. Middle managers? No, none of those. Granite Education Foundation. All right, we appreciate those of you who are here and attending and/or attending online your participation. We are going to go ahead and get started. Taylor Cater, who is the principal of Driggs Elementary, will come up and do our Pledge of Allegiance.
I guess I can, yeah, please. Oh, okay, sure. Okay, if everyone's already doing it. All right, here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Principal Cater. We're going to turn the time over to Ben to introduce our reverends.
Very pleased this evening to invite and have the Howard Driggs Elementary, some third graders. It's Read Across America Day and time and celebration, so they have a reverence for us. They're going to be reading to us this evening, and so we'd invite, I'm going to have Principal Cater come back up here and introduce them, but while he does so, I'd invite the board and members of the superintendency to come down off the stand. Be sure to bring your books so you can follow along, but we also have it on the overhead projector for the general audience. Taylor.
We just want to welcome everyone here tonight and highlight what really I think education is all about, which is literacy. And obviously there are other subjects like European history that matter too, but literacy really. And I really want to say, I have to tell you, and I mean this so sincerely, I am the principal at, I really do think, the best elementary school in the entire world. I mean, truly. And Driggs is a place that I never, ever want to leave. And the students there are really the shining jewel of the school. So I just want to give you the opportunity to hear a kind of bedtime story tonight from our amazing Driggs students and their wonderful parents who have agreed to come down late in the evening tonight to do this. And without further ado, I'll allow them to come up and start reading our story for us. And any students that would like to come up and sit on the steps and listen, you're welcome to, or you can stay in the audience too. It's entirely up to you.
Night Owl by Christopher Denise.
Since the day he had hatched, Owl had one wish: to be a knight. Every morning, before he drifted off to sleep, he imagined himself as a real knight. He would be brave, he would be clever, and he would have many friends. It was just a dream, until one day, knights began disappearing from the castle. So, Owl applied to night school, and to everyone's surprise, he was accepted.
Owl was an excellent student, but he had a tough time with his sword. Even the smallest shield was a problem, and he had a habit of nodding off during the day. Night school was hard, but Owl worked and worked. He graduated with honor, as all knights do. Owl was assigned to the night watch. He was very good at his job. The other knights usually fell asleep during the long night watch, but Owl didn't mind. All alone on the castle wall, he finally felt like a real knight. Until late one evening, it was very dark and very, very quiet when Owl heard a strange sound. Whoosh! It sounded like a huge bird flapping its wings. Woo! Owl called. He heard the sound again. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Woo, woo! He called. Whoosh. Woo, 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 woo! Owl called. Who, me? Said a deep voice. Who are you? Asked Owl.
I am a hungry dragon, said the dragon. Owl was very afraid. But because he was now a real knight, and knights are brave, he puffed out his feathers and said, I'm an owl, and I'm a knight of the night watch. You don't look like a knight, said the dragon. You look like a midnight snack. Owl's feathers trembled. But because he was a real knight, and knights are clever, he said, you don't want me. I'm too small, hardly even a mouthful. A mouthful isn't enough, snarled the dragon. I'm all feathers and fluff, said Owl. A great dragon like you needs something more tastier and filling. How about a pizza instead?
It turned out that the dragon loved pizza. They talked about how each of them had hatched from eggs, how much they liked the night, and how flying was hard to explain to someone who had never done it before. They really had a lot in common. The following week, not a single night disappeared, or the week after that, and every night Owl patrolled the walls. It was very dark and very, very quiet, but Owl didn't mind because he was brave, he was clever, and he had many friends.
And we just want to thank our amazing Excel-nominated teacher, Miss Katie Ricks, who helped put all of this together as well. Thank you so much for listening to our Driggs Dragon Bedtime Story. We wish you all the best. Have a wonderful evening.
We want to say thank you also to the parents. I know they've already left, but we appreciate you getting your kiddos here too. And Chris asked if we could go to bed now because that was our nighttime. All All right, we are going to move on to our Good News Minute. Board members are going to take 1 minute and share with us what they've been doing this month. And let's start with Clark since Julie's not here. Sorry.
Sure, I'll just mention 2 quick things. One, I think it's appropriate to recognize and to thank the cities of South Salt Lake and Mill Creek for their event that they held in combination with their Promise partnerships. They called it Road to 100% Graduation, and their effort and their goal to be a partner with us in education to achieve 100% graduation in all of our schools. The last, or the other thing I'll mention is a literacy event that I had the chance to attend, Literacy Night at Woodstock Elementary. Fantastic evening, tremendous support from the faculty and the school leadership and the patrons of the school that came out to support a great literacy night.
Karen?
It was fun to just listen to that book, Read Across America. So I was able to, on that particular day, go to Farnsworth Elementary and read to 2 5th grade classes and read with 1 1st grade class. And if anybody's ever having kind of a down day, just go spend even an hour or 2 in an elementary and read with some kids. And so that was a lot of fun. I'm sure other board members are going to speak to this as well, but we had our foundation annual bus ride to award the 10 Excel winners, 9 outstanding teachers and 1 outstanding administrator. I was able to attend 4 of those, and it was a bigger celebration than normal. We had the Jazz Bear. They each got their own jersey. It was quite the production. And so shout out to our foundation as they work with their partners to celebrate those winners. The community councils right now, thanks for everybody who serves on those because they're making their plans. They're looking at projections for next year. So thanks for all the work there. I also wanted to mention, if I can speak, that Kennedy changed their mascot. Kennedy Junior High out in my area used to be the Kennedy Crusaders, and now they are the Kennedy Knights. So this night owl brought that to my attention, so there you go.
Karen?
All right, and Karen already mentioned, but our Excel Awards were fantastic this year. It was so fun to recognize those outstanding educators in our district and admin, and it was such a great atmosphere to go into those schools, and the kids are so excited for those teachers, and it's just excitement. And thank you to our foundation who supports that and organizes it all, and it takes so much work and so much effort, so thank you. And I'll just mention one other, I got to go to the Silver Hills Literacy Night. They had the funnest night. They had different characters and heroes from the community in different rooms reading to the kids. And they had a free book for the kids, and they had pizza, and the kids could go through and have Spider-Man read them a book, or Belle, or a police officer, and it was fantastic to see those kids just get excited to see those characters and read, and just get excited about reading. And I just appreciate all the effort that went into all the celebrations for literacy at our schools this last week, and that's all.
Thank you. Connie?
I didn't go on the bus, but I went to the Excel honorees, and really appreciate the foundation, say thanks to them also. I also went to Eisenhower's play of Matilda, and I am so impressed and so grateful that people will be, the teachers involved so many students. They had over 50 students, and the choreography that was done was amazing. And I appreciate so much that teachers and people are willing to put effort into helping the kids enjoy a drama experience.
Thanks, Connie. Kim?
I think a lot of events fit into a month. The few that stood out for me was our Day on the Hill back in not long after our last board meeting. It reminds me to thank all of the people who have spent so much time working there in this legislative session, giving feedback, giving input, and for those who were willing to meet with us and talk with us. Also wanted to thank all the volunteers and parents and community members who participated in our additional reconfiguration meetings. I did get feedback about how much people appreciated the panels, so to those who participated in them, thank you. And also, thank you Thursday at Stansbury Elementary. It was fun to attend, and just echoing your comments to JD and the Education Foundation for looking for ways to recognize teachers who are doing well. So, thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
I'm just going to take the liberty to say that there are so many people in this audience today who I get to work with personally, and I am just so inspired by this site today because I can look at so many individual people and I know the contribution that you have made for our kids. And this is just a spectacular group to be able to look down upon. That sounded really wrong. That's not the way I meant it. But I just want to recognize so many people who really are doing great things, both, all for our kids. It's a really beautiful thing to come together as a team to work for them like that. I wanted to highlight today something that happened at one of my schools this week, Conwood Elementary, who happens to be here. They had a program that was just one of the most exciting programs I've seen to get kids to read, and it was Battle of the Books. And in their Battle of the Books program, over the last 6 months, they've gotten at least a third of the kids in their school to read up to 12 books in 6 months. So that's 2 a week. And these are like Newbery books, and think about that. If you read 12 books in 6 months as a 3rd, 4th, or 5th grader, for example, you're a reader. Now you're a reader. And I was so just inspired to see how excited these kids were about their books and how they had been inspired not only to read them, but to become masters of the comprehension of them, the enjoyment of them, laughing with each other about the funny things that happen in their books. It was just so inspiring. And now I'm like, that's my next thing. How do I get Battle of the Books everywhere? This is really cool.
All right. I just wanted to highlight real quick. I had the opportunity to go with, I didn't go with them, I met them up there, but Taylorsville, one of our special education teachers there, took her class with the SBOs up to the Capitol and had a tour and talked to some representatives. And I thought that was so cool because I think sometimes, we forget how exciting that could be for our sped kids, and for them to be able to go on a field trip with them and to see the SBOs interact with them was really fun. I did also attend the Evergreen Junior High STEM night. They missed you, Clark. It was so cool to see the drone show outside, and my son and I went, we drove up there a little bit late, and it was spectacular to see those drones right above that school. If anybody has ever seen that, they did an incredible job. And then lastly, I was able to visit with Dr. Johnson. He's our newest principal here in the district. He is at Diamond Ridge, and I let him get his feet wet a little bit before I went and visited with him. I did walk in and I said, "Are you?" And he said, "Taller than Dr. Wilson?" "No." And I said, no, that wasn't my question. But I figure Dr. Wilson, Dr. Howe, is it Dr. Johnson next? And then Dr. Nye. And then Dr. Kinley. So anyway, it was good to visit with them. So thank you, board members. We appreciate all the work that you do in your schools and getting out and supporting our communities. We're going to move on to our recognitions. We're going to turn the time over. Is Dr. Bramble here? There you are. To Dr. Bramble.
Yeah, we're going to start with our MGP trophies and then move on to our winter sports recognition. So Dr. Bramble.
All right, thank you, School Board and Superintendency, for the opportunity to be here tonight and recognize the great performance of a few of our schools. If you remember, in January, we presented traveling trophies for the schools with the highest median growth percentile, or MGP, for the 22-23 school year at the end of year testing. Skyline High School was not able to be here in January, so we did invite them tonight to be recognized as Granite District's high school with the highest MGP at 62. So I would invite members from their school to come up at this time for their trophy.
I just want to highlight that we brought our community council tonight. It is because of the community council that we're able to do this. We appreciate them so much.
Thank you.
Get in there, get in there.
And Skyline, I'm going to need that trophy back for next year, right? So let's make sure I get that one back.
Filled with candy next time.
In addition to growth as measured by MGP, this year we are also recognizing schools for increasing the percent of students who are demonstrating proficiency on end-of-level assessments. So the next schools that we are recognizing tonight are those schools that showed the highest possible gain in their overall proficiency on end-of-year testing when comparing performance from the 21-22 school year to performance at the end of the 22-23 school year. So we've asked representatives from these schools to come tonight, and they were going to be receiving a traveling trophy for their accomplishment. We're going to start with our 5 top elementary schools, and these are, first, Fox Hills Elementary. Come on up.
Since this is data from last year, we do have principal from Terry Danes from last year, part of this recognition, so we're happy to have her. Come on up.
Nice job. Good job. Hey, again.
Thank you. Well done. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
And if you're too excited, go to junior high. Just kidding. Totally kidding. I love junior high.
And our next elementary school, William Penn, come on up.
Do you have like the penguin cheer spot? What's the penguin cheer? So excited.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations.
Oh, so sorry. I'm moving over here. Well, give the principal. Yeah. Wish together. Wish.
next up, Woodstock Elementary. Come on up, Woodstock.
Congratulations. Congratulations. This is one of the places I'm only not Thank you.
And our next elementary, Oakwood. Congratulations.
Now we see the common.
Nice job.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice job.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Nice to see you. Thank you.
We know you're the
Round two. Round two. Yes. Congratulations.
I was gonna say you have to.
Scholar.
Okay, ready?
And our last elementary, Eastwood Elementary. Come on up, Eastwood. Congratulations.
Hey, Julie, what's their mascot? Oh, she's Julie.
Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations.
Where do we figure out if we had to do alliteration? Eastwood equals.
And next we have two junior highs, our top two junior highs. Churchill Junior High, come on up.
Nice job, guys. Way to go. Congratulations, guys. Nice work.
Thank you.
Super proud.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
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 Together?
And Evergreen Junior High, come on up. And finally, our top high school for the year is Kearns High. Come on up, Kearns. Congratulations.
Just making sure it's all. Congratulations. Thanks for coming. Congratulations. Nice job. Thanks for coming tonight.
Great. And congratulations to all of you for a great job in moving kids to proficiency. And as we gear up for another testing at the end of this year, we're excited to see the great work that you will continue to do and have done throughout the year in making sure that our kids are gaining greater proficiency. Thank you, board. Thank you, superintendency.
Thank you, Dr. Bramble.
Members of the board, Dr. Nye, a great winter season for athletics in Granite School District. We had 3 state championship teams, 2 second-place teams, a handful of state records that were broken by our students. And the first person we'd like to recognize is the National Federation for High Schools Cross-Country Coach of the Year, Coach Guy Mackey from Taylorsville High School. If you'll come on down here, Guy. Coach Mackey is a 27-year veteran of coaching, all at Taylorsville High School, his alma mater. He has coached football, baseball, basketball, swimming, track, and of course cross country. And Coach Mackey does an excellent job as one of our athletic directors in the district. As mentioned before, excuse me, we had 3 team state champions this year, all from Olympus, and we'll turn the time over to Principal Christensen.
Who wears a green dress or outfit almost every day? She has
do.
the most team spirit of anyone I know.
And look, I have my Olympus earrings too. Like, I'm ready. I'm always ready to represent. I could not be more excited to acknowledge and recognize some of our exemplary student athletes that we have at Olympus High. It really has been such an incredible year for athletics at Olympus. Before 21-22, we had 3 state championships that in the history that we'd won throughout the year. We hadn't gotten any more than that. 21-22, we got 4, and this year, at the finish of all of the winter sports, we have 5 as of right now. So it's been a really fun year, and I'm so proud of our students. And so first, I want to bring our women's state swim champions up front up here. so I also want Coach Tom. Coach Tom, you have to come up too. So let me tell you a little bit about these wonderful ladies. While everyone is, or the majority of people are asleep at 5:30 in the morning, they are already in the pool, and they are already starting to prepare swimming for the day. So they're up early and swimming. No, this is good. This is perfect. Oh, I am going to tell you about them a little bit. Let me tell you about them first. Okay, I just want to tell you how cool this is. So these girls, they really have an underdog story. So I want to tell you a little bit about their underdog story. So when we congratulated this team, we congratulated them in front of the student body. And when we did that, Coach Tom said that about 4 weeks before that, he told them that he'd realized his purpose in life. Do you remember this? He said he'd realized his purpose in life, and it was to show these girls that miracles can happen. And at the time, and this was 4 weeks prior to the state championship, he told them, he said, miracles can happen, and he was going to prove to them that they could. And these girls, throughout that 4 weeks, they persevered, they pushed hard, and they went into the state tournament as the 3rd seed, and they came out on top. They beat the favorite Skyline by 1 point, which is huge, and they took state. So they represented Olympus well, and they just wowed everybody there, especially during that last relay. It was really exciting to watch and see. With this, there's some pretty incredible individuals that I also want to highlight. Rainey Moran, she took state in the individual 500 freestyle. So Rainey, wave. And also the Audrey Kim, I'm going to have Audrey wave as well. Audrey, she is our Sterling Scholar in math, and she has made it onto the finals in the Sterling Scholar competition. She's also a national merit finalist, and she's preparing to compete in the Paralympics as well. So. And in this group, we have 2 academic All-States. So we have Audrey Kim and Lauren Greenwell. So congratulations to both of these guys as well. Okay, that's everything I want to say.
Can we have the parents stand up and recognize our parents as well, of these athletes? Thank you for getting your kids to swim practice.
Oh, yeah, that's got to be a lot of early mornings, parents. Nice dedication.
Okay, I'm going to make Coach Tom stay up here, and I'm going to make the boys come up now. So boys, come on up. Yeah, we have more boys, and I know they all have a lot of things that they are currently working on right now. They're all really busy, all very involved. Okay. Okay, so while these guys are standing up here, I want to tell you that this is one of the most dominant teams, dominant men's swimming team in Utah State history that has ever been there. When they competed at region, their score was like double everybody else at region. And so it was just their score just kept getting higher and higher, and it was pretty amazing to see. So within this team, and he's not here tonight, but Abe Astle was named the 5A Swimmer of the Year. And he had 2 state records, and we also had 3 relays. So raise your hand if you were on those relays, these guys. So on these relays, they received All-American status. And what that means is that they are part of the top 10 athletes in the country. So just, they're competing at an extremely high level. Will De La Garza, and Will is here, wave your hand. He got the 5A state record in the backstroke and the 100 butterfly, and was also named Men's Swimming Athlete of the Week back in January. He also somehow had time during swim season to compete at FCCLA. So pretty impressive to do that as well. And Colin De La Garza is Men's Academic All-State. So congratulations to Colin as well. And I have to tell you how incredible Coach Tom is. So we all call him Coach Tom, but it's Coach Tom Thorham. He truly loves these kids, and he really is invested in everything they do and helping them achieve their goals as a team. I don't know if he'll remember this, but when the season started, I said, okay, Tom, so how's this year gonna go? And he told me, he said, we're gonna take state in both. And I was like, I believe it. If you tell me that, I really believe it. And they did. So anyway, congratulations to these guys, and they represented Olympus very well.
And once again, can we have the parents? Parents, will you please stand and also be recognized? Parents of these athletes.
Okay, also would like to mention congratulations to Skyline for taking second in the girls swim, and also to Cottonwood High School for a great season in basketball. Made it all the way to the state championship game and played valiantly. I had a couple of opportunities to watch them play this year, and a very well-coached team. They hustled. It was just, went through the lens of a coach. That was a fun team to watch this year. So congratulations. I would like to now announce our Academic All-State Award winners this year. These are seniors who have, you have to basically have a 4.0 to be selected. Some cases you can have a 3.9 if you have a very high ACT score. And so this is the best students in athletics, and we had 20 from Granite School District. As we mention your name, please come on down and shake the hand of the board and the superintendency and pose for a picture. And then as you walk out, grab over here a gift basket. There's a pin for your parents to put on their lapel. And there's a great pair of socks that say Academic All-State. They're quite coveted, apparently.
And we'll wait. Let's announce all the names before we applaud, if that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds great to me. Thank you. From Cottonwood High School, Audrey Geringer for competitive cheer. Matthew Bruns for boys swimming, Kirsten Schaub for girls swimming. From Cypress High School, Alora Hull for drill. From Granger High School, Sierra Smith for girls swimming. From Hunter High School, Jenna Olson for competitive cheer, Jenna Olson for girls wrestling, Zakael Casa for boys basketball. From Kearns High School, Frederick Biesinger for boys swimming. From Olympus High School, Colin De La Garza, boys swimming. Audrey Kim, girls swimming. Lauren Greenwell, girls swimming. Ammon Stevens, boys wrestling. Dutch Dowdell, boys basketball. And from Skyline High School, Alexander Stewart for boys swimming. Conrad Flake, Soonhui Kwan, I apologize, I didn't put their sport down. Lucas Anbaka for boys wrestling. Camilla Groberg for girls basketball. And Malachi Sorensen for boys basketball. That is.
And one more time, any parents also, can we have you guys stand and be recognized?
Thank you.
Thank you for supporting your athletes, and thank you, athletes, for doing such an amazing job. All right, are we on to, Ben, are we on to Lynn Rada? There you are. We're going to invite Lynn Rada to come up and present about National Board Certified Teachers.
Yes, good evening, Board. Thank you for having us. Each year, we have the opportunity to celebrate our teachers that either initially certify or recertify their National Board Teacher Certification. And in 2023, we had 4 teachers that were able to recertify through this rigorous process. So we'd like to recognize them tonight. As a reminder, just a little bit about how prestigious this certification is. The National Board Certification was developed in 1987 and is really one of the most respected professional certifications available for K-12 educators. The certification process requires that the teachers demonstrate standards-based evidence of the positive effect they have on student learning. This certification has 4 tasks to it, and to complete this, it takes about 200 to 400 hours in a 4-month window that they have to do this. They're building a portfolio, and in that portfolio, they have videotapes of them teaching, student work that they have to submit, and then they have to submit very detailed reflections on their videotapes and their lesson plans and all their submissions. So tonight, I'm really pleased to introduce you to, again, we had 4, 2 were able to make it tonight, but I'd like to start with Deborah Gatrell, who actually oversees the program for Granite School District. She's one of our nationally board certified teachers, and she doesn't want to come up, but she's waving there from the audience. And she makes sure this happens for us. Are you coming to talk to me? No? All right, so Shari Lohman is another one of our teachers. She is not here tonight, but she teaches at Silver Hills Elementary and is a 5th grade teacher. Chad, we have 2 teachers here, I hope, from Taylorsville. Is Chad here tonight? Chad Farnes, come on up. And is Anna here as well? No, just you, Chad. You're representing Taylorsville for us. This is Chad Farnes. He teaches our LIA classes at Taylorsville High. I don't see Anna. Anna is a CTE teacher at Taylorsville High who recertified. And then we have Jennifer Christiansen, who is a 1st grade teacher at Eastwood Elementary as well. And I don't think she is here tonight. So congratulations in our week of celebrating teachers with Excel and National Board. We appreciate you.
All right, I believe that's all the recognitions that we have. We're going to move on to, we have granted elected official participation time. I did not see any before, but did I miss anybody? Okay. We're going to move on then to patron participation time. We have 5 people who have signed up. Actually, sorry, 4. And we're going to go ahead and start. We'll do it in this order. Abby Hanson-Vigil, Abigail Macris, I hope I say that right, Isabel Miller, and then Michelle Jones. If you will come up to the microphone, 3 minutes, state your name, and we're happy to hear your comments. Abby Hanson-Vigil, are you here? Do you want to go ahead and make your way up? Just a reminder, unless it is something that is placed on our agenda, we don't have the option to discuss it, but we are happy to hear comments. So go ahead and come on up, Abby.
Hi, so...
Speak right into the microphone so we can hear.
Okay, sorry. I'm a member of the Hunter Speech and Debate team, and we have had 6 people qualify for nationals in Chicago, Illinois. And we wanted to fundraise in our school, but Granite District hasn't been allowing us to. So, sorry. Sorry, I have a thing. In the past, this has been accepted for 2 different schools for the same tournament. They have let Granger and Cottonwood attend this tournament. They say that I'm so sorry. I didn't know that I was speaking tonight. So it's causing inequality in opportunities between Granite School District debate teams and other teams. And other school districts, such as Salt Lake District, are permitting their debaters to fundraise and travel to nationals as a team. So we wanted to be able to do that for our team too. That's pretty much it. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you so much, Abby. Abigail Macris. Is Abigail here? Go ahead and come on up.
Hi, I am also a part of the Hunter High Speech and Debate team, and we have had people qualify for a national tournament in Chicago, Illinois, and yet the district isn't going to be sponsoring us in that. We have found points in which they have made exceptions and let other speech and debate teams go to this tournament before. For example, in 2018, both Granger and Cottonwood attended the NCFL Nationals in Washington, D.C., and yet we're not permitted to go as a team in Chicago, Illinois this year. Along with that, we are a sport, and other sports are allowed to go to nationals, such as cheerleading and dance, but we aren't permitted to go as the Hunter Speech and Debate team. So, and this is just an opportunity for debaters such as myself to go to a national tournament which we have qualified for. Me personally, I got 3rd place in my event, and I would love to go to nationals as a part of the Hunter Speech and Debate team. But because the district isn't letting us go as the Hunter Speech and Debate team, I would have to go as an individual. So, thank you.
Thank you. And then Isabel Miller.
Hello, my name is Isabel Miller, and I am a sophomore at Hunter High School, and I'm actually the speech and debate president at our school this year. Now, becoming speech and debate president was not easy, especially for me, as I had just turned 16 years old. It was a lot of hard work. But one thing I've learned is that debate in general is hard work. You need to come after school to practice often to improve your speeches, your arguments, your research, and all of our tournaments happen to fall on a Friday and a Saturday, which means we have to give up our weekends to go to these competitions. We could be spending this time with family, with friends, or getting some rest and relaxation after a long week at school, except we're not, because we're at speech and debate. Now, despite what it may sound like, I did not come up here to complain about how hard speech and debate is. I'm actually in love with speech and debate. This has been my passion for the past 2 years. I love speech and debate. I have never felt more confident in myself or able to share my opinions and be heard, or that I actually had people around me who were like me and understood me as I have since joining debate. This season, we have worked so hard at many competitions, including region and state just last week, but our most impressive tournament was the NCFL National Qualifiers. We qualified 6 students from Hunter to go to Chicago, Illinois in May, but now we're being told we cannot go. There are 3 main arguments for this: the cost, the location, and the status of speech and debate as a sport. I would like to address the cost argument. Yes, this would be expensive, but I'm not coming to you asking for all the money or even without a plan. We debaters are, believe it or not, very charismatic, hardworking, convincing, and great at fundraising. We are currently fundraising on GoFundMe as members of speech and debate at Hunter High School for 2024, but we are unable to do very well as we can't fundraise at school and as a team. Now, it is unrealistic to expect debaters at Hunter and many other schools in this district to be able to afford this competition on their own, because sure, while many students from schools like Olympus or Skyline could afford this trip without fundraising money, we cannot. The inequity between our schools is very astonishing. There are 41% of students at Hunter alone who qualify for free and reduced lunch. That means they live below the poverty line. If we cannot afford food without help, how are we expected to finance this trip, not given the chance to fundraise as a team? Now, as for the argument that is way out of our region, this has again not been an issue before. In 2018, the NCFL event we are trying to go to this very day was held in Washington, D.C. That's out of our region. Yet Granger and Cottonwood got the permission from Assistant Superintendent John Welburn and the board. This is the same tournament. We worked just as hard. Why are we not given the same opportunity to go? Lastly, speech and debate is viewed as a sport, so we apparently don't get to do any events that happen after our state competition. But there's an issue with that statement, as the UHSAA has sanctioned tournaments that take place after state. For example, Beavers tournament. Funny story, we debaters love a play on words, so this tournament being held at Beavers, actually Beavers' last damn tournament. Regardless, the UHSAA has let us participate in tournaments following state, so this proves that this argument is not valid. We are also so much different than other sports in the sense that we teach critical thinking, public speaking, research, and other academic skills. The class also counts as a core English credit. Nationals would be an amazing opportunity for us to go to so that we could see competition that we would never see locally here in Utah at region or at state, and it would make us much more competitive in the future. So now I'd like to talk about you. If you're on the school board or you're a superintendent, then you must care about either education, students, or politics. Speech and debate is all 3. I would like to say that we matter, and we are asking you as leaders, parents, as educators and people to stop fighting against us and our opportunities for the future and instead fight for us. Thank you.
Before we have Michelle come up, I was made aware that there was a gentleman here from Kearns High School, Noah Crane, who would like to come up and address the board. We will make an exception. Usually we ask you to register before, but go ahead and come on up, Noah.
Thank you. Sorry, there's an issue with me.
That's okay.
Thank you for letting me on. Okay. 5 minutes, correct?
3.
3 minutes, okay. Hello, everyone. To introduce myself, my name is Noah Crane. As captain of the Kearns debate team, I would like to give a few words in regard to the rules set by this very school board. I've been on this team for a few years now. Debate is, I feel, a fantastic opportunity for kids to learn about the world and develop a drive to change it. Unfortunately, however, my team has, let's say, not have the best go of it this year. We've had many people go and even more people unwilling to join. We came out of this season this year with the smallest team in the region. There have been many moments in this year where we could not even afford buses. During this time, I and many of my other captains chipped in to provide rides to our peers who could not drive. You could describe our team in many ways, advantage not being one of them. But at the same time, if there's one thing that I've learned from being here for so many years, it is that sports, like life, is unfair. No matter where you go in this life, there will always be somebody that has it better than you. There will always be a school with that much more funding, that much more teachers, and that much more opportunities. And I believe that it is that inequality that serves to make us better. Without an objective advantage, we are able to know that with each victory we earned, it remains just that, earned. Sports would simply be boring if we were all the same. However, while there will certainly be those with an advantage, for a sport to be truly meritocratic, those who are advantaged must not be so privileged as to make everybody around them disadvantaged. And it is on that principle that I believe that these rules set by the school board go beyond that threshold. Despite us not having the best funding or opportunities, 6 people on our team have qualified for the UCFL tournament, but are unfortunately unable to compete due to the roadblocks set by the rules. The restrictions we have been brought with include the following. Number 1, we are not allowed to travel together. Number 2, we are unable to travel without the presence of a parent. Number 3, we are unable to represent the team in any form of school fundraisers that we participate in. These rules serve as a roadblock for the team, primarily because many people on our team do not have the funds to pay for the travel costs alone, not including the funds that go to other necessities such as housing and food. The rules in place put the onus on the competitor themselves to pay for it, despite being a team event. All of the problems with funding could be solved if we were simply allowed to pay for it all as a team. By having every cost be allocated to a single fund, we could cover the entire team when it comes to travel, housing, and food. We cannot do this, however, if we are unable to act as a team. This problem, however, is not my main concern. At Kearns, money seems to always be a problem, and we plan on solving it with fundraising. However, I'm afraid that we are unable to do even that, which brings me to my second contention. The inability to create a fundraiser associated with the school is, I believe, the greatest disadvantage we have when it comes to solving the issue. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you. It takes a lot to get up here in front of a bunch of adults, so well done, students. While Michelle makes her way up, I'm going to turn some time over to Rich, Dr. Nye, to just address this.
Thank you, Board President, and I appreciate the students that have spoken to the issue, and we do value them. We are proud of them and the work they accomplish. Just for additional context, where we're at in terms of the process, the board does have Board Policy Article 8A18, subsection 2, sub F, and it essentially states, in an effort to control costs and make travel safer and more convenient, travel outside of the state of Utah will be limited to the following states: Arizona, California, Colorado, Idaho, Nevada, New Mexico, Oregon, Washington, and Wyoming. However, exceptions can be made and require approval of the board. So where we're at in the process is, my understanding would be, the initial denial came because it did require travel outside of those states listed in board policy. However, as mentioned, exceptions and approvals can be made, as has been mentioned in some of the comments that were provided that this board has done in the past. So in terms of process, that's where we're at this time, and encourage those who feel so inclined to work through an exception process. Thank you.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Hello, my name's Michelle Jones, and I am lucky to be the teacher of 9th grade mathematics students, as well as GEA president. Dear Granite School District board members, President McDermott, and Superintendent Nye, I'm taking the time tonight to reiterate the support of GEA in condemning Natalie Klein's comments targeting one of our students. I applaud the board's wisdom in seeing the gravity of the incident and choosing to take swift action. The sea of red shirts that filled this space is symbolic of the commitment of our members in supporting the board's resolution and our shared desire to ensure that every student feels supported and has a champion. Thank you so much for leading by example.
Thanks, Michelle. All right, we're going to move on to our consent agenda. These items have been, we've been able to look at these for the last few days. If there's any questions or concerns, otherwise I will entertain a motion.
I'll just comment real quickly a couple of items on the agenda for me personally that I will not be voting for. Opposed to government funding of personal home internet access. I believe that paying for that service is well outside the proper function or role of government, as well as a third-party contract with an organization I have concerns with. So just for your awareness, sharing that for my vote.
Thanks, Kim.
Move to approve consent agenda. I'll second.
A motion and a second to approve consent agenda. Is there any further discussion or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have one opposed and 6 yeas. We will move on to our action items. We've pulled these out separately. Administrative appointments will be the first one.
I move that we approve the administrative appointments.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this? Questions? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, with that, we're going to turn it over to Leslie first. Rick, Leslie, who wants to introduce these administrative appointments?
Good evening, Board. I'm going to turn the time over to Dave Gomez. He's in the Student Learning and Support Division, and he's over the Department of Educational Equity, and this is the Associate Director for Educational Equity.
Good evening, President McDermott, Board of Education, and Superintendent Nye. Due to the retirement of Rebecca Ibarra, I am here to introduce the new Associate Director for the Educational Equity Department. It is Carly Chavez. If you could please stand. I do need to say that Carly is a product of Granite. She attended Hunter High. I'm also a product of Granite. We're proud of that. Carly Chavez began her educational career as a teacher for the Granite School District at Hunter Elementary in 2008. After some years, she received her administrative certification and became an intern assistant principal at Gerald Wright and Monroe Elementary. In 2016, she became the principal of Lake Ridge Elementary. She currently serves as the principal of Olene Walker Elementary. We welcome you, Carly. Could you also please introduce who you have brought with you this evening?
Absolutely, thank you. I have my wonderful husband Alex here, and my son Mason, and my daughter Kenzie. And so
Board President, Board Superintendent, Superintendency, thank you for the opportunity this evening. I too have a individual that was approved this evening, and this is a position that I have when Lynn Rada received the Leadership and Improvement Director position, creating this opening. The successful candidate, and she's here this evening, if you'd stand, is Ann Reese. Just a little bit about Ann here in our teacher onboarding and instructional coaching position. Ann was a teacher for us for about a decade, where she was an Excel winning teacher and Granite's Teacher of the Year. Right after that, she came into this same department as a specialist, so she has some experience working in the department. After that was an intern administrator at Pioneer in Westbrook, and then principal at Morningside for the last several years. And tell us who you have with you this evening.
I brought my mom and my dad, Judy, Reese, and Rollins. Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're thrilled to have you guys with us in these positions. All right, we are going to move on to our ELA curriculum adoption. All right, we have had, just so you know, we've had this ELA curriculum available to us. It has been made available to our public, and people have been able to comment on it. There were some questions that were brought up, and I hope I'm not sure if everybody was able to see that email, but hopefully you were. If there are any questions, Rick is available to answer those. Otherwise, or I guess she's not here. Go ahead.
Will you accept a motion? I move that we approve the new K-5 ELA curriculum adoption.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I do have some comments.
Go ahead, Kim.
I know, so yeah, most of the public comments, which is what the email was about that you referenced, I did read that. Most of the public comments show teachers not, favoring this curriculum. I think it's unfortunate there weren't more comments from parents, but the teachers did have a common theme. I just see the thoughts on this from Noelle Converse forwarded by Rick, and I suppose it remains to be seen whether that pans out, whether they change their view once they're trained on this curriculum. I appreciate the mention of less online, more physical curriculum in this option, but I would still like us to push further on that. And I still have concerns about science of reading. I realize we have some what I consider poor education legislation around this, but I don't like that it focuses on using informational texts, taking away a lot of imaginative and interesting novels and stories with these texts. Long story short, I still have some concerns around it, so I am a no on this. So I'm just sharing my views.
Thanks, Kim. Any other comments? Questions? Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the ELA, the K-5 ELA curriculum. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
All right. Motion passes. We will move on to our sex education materials. These ones also have been made available to the public. We have solicited comment from our public on this. They were introduced, and we were also, we had these presented to us, both of these curriculums before. We've had a chance to look over them as well as the public comment. So with that, if there's no questions, Rick is here to answer questions, right? Is there any questions? Then I can entertain a motion. Oh, did you have a question?
Well, actually, I guess we should do our new effort to do a motion and then have discussion, right? I'll allow the motion.
I'll get it on the table if that's what we need. So I move that we approve the sex ed materials as a first reading. It is a first reading, or is it a one and done? I don't remember.
It's a one and done unless we choose it.
Just kidding. Let me rephrase my motion. I move that we approve as an action item sex education materials.
I'll second.
Did I do that right?
Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve as a, yes, to approve our sex education materials as it has been presented. All right, now let's open it up for discussion.
Yeah, so my concern is that when we were reading those comments, we had somebody who was I'm going to get their qualifications wrong, a licensed sex health professional, the qualifications I'm not doing well on, who brought to the attention that, like, most people in the field do not look at this as a best practice or as a research-based, I'm discussing the Fight the New Drug curriculum that is proposed in this group of curriculum. That it is not considered a best practices or a research-based curriculum, and that it is instead a curriculum that's been created by business and has been marketed as such. And I just called a couple of other people to find out what they thought about that as well. I certainly do not think that I talked to enough people that I feel confident that I understand where we're at on that, but I do think that the pornography issue is new, relatively, but it's not so new that we don't have people who have lots of experience with it. I'd like to make sure that whatever we were doing about it was research-based and is what is considered best practices. And I respect the the committee process that we have. And in this case, I guess what I'm asking is, usually when we give curriculum to a committee to look at, it has been vetted as research-based and best practices. And I don't think that there has been a standard for what is best practice where this kind of curriculum is concerned. And so that's where I'm wondering, I mean, as far as I know, we have a teacher who requested this, and then the committee viewed it. And so I have some questions. Those are all my concerns and questions where I'm at. So maybe.
May I clarify your concerns? Is it specific to the Fight the New Drug paradigm, for lack of a better word? Is that accurate?
It's specific to the content of the curriculum, not the organization itself.
Right, and by curriculum, you're referring to the specific narrow portion that relates to fight the new drug. Is that fair to say? Like,
yes.
There's other portions of the curriculum that you're not concerned about. Your concern
Correct,
rests
which
with
I would
the Fight the New
approve.
Drug. Okay.
Yeah, I approve of those others.
Could we ask you, Rick, to comment perhaps on the process that the committee went through in vetting the curriculum and specifically looking at best practices with respect to Fight the New Drug?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yes? The process is outlined in our policy and follows state law. Essentially, this curriculum was introduced and brought before the committee, and it was honestly about a year ago, but they had missed a window in their cycle of vetting. Every committee member takes a look at this grouping, and they have discussion around whether it's acceptable or not, whether it meets state code, et cetera, and ultimately approved it as a committee. I don't have the details on what the discussion was, et cetera. The committee's made up of some employees and some community members as well. Julie and I dialogued a little bit about this over the comments specifically on this section of what's been asked to be approved. And I think the specific comment that resonated with her, and I'm not speaking for you, Julie, but I from what you were saying, I hear too is just this idea of the person who made the comment introduced this idea of it perhaps being fear-based or shame-based, and that didn't sit well in terms of what other research is perhaps saying. I don't know committee-wise if they had the level of credentials or expertise as the individual who made commentary, but certainly do have expertise in education, in the standards, in health, and expertise in what's acceptable or not in their community.
Did that answer it for you?
I think so. I appreciate that. I guess back in response then to your concerns, Julie, I'm not sure we have a basis for the credentials of the person who made the comment. I'm not necessarily questioning those, but we don't know that. We don't have a basis for that, and so I'm struggling with the challenge, I guess, in that I understand you have some concerns, but we also have a committee that's gone through and taken the steps to comply with state laws and regulations with respect to this curriculum. And I'm also, I guess I just don't, I'm not aware of a substantive basis for the inference or suggestion or assertion that the curriculum is fear-based or shame, it takes on a shaming paradigm. Rather, I guess I view it a little bit differently, that I appreciate the paradigm that pornography is a drug. It's a type of drug. It has a significant impact on our students and on their families. So I guess I'm really struggling with how to evaluate your concern and how to address it.
I think that what I'm not necessarily, quite honestly, I'm not accusing it of being not best practices. I'm saying we don't know that it is, and we have I mean, I guess I haven't come with my experts, listed out with their quotations and their qualifications. I only know that I called their clinics and talked to them, which tells me if they work at a clinic, somebody's vetted them. But, and it's only, well, 2 people and the 1 person who made the comment. So I don't think that I have enough information to know that it isn't best practices. I have enough information to question whether it's what's right for our kids, and I would much prefer to find out before we put it in front of them. And I think what I really came here wanting to suggest is to not approve that curriculum and do a little more vetting, because I think my concern is that it's a different kind of curriculum than we've had before. It's a new kind of a thing to really address pornography in our schools as a curricular type thing. I mean, we've had assemblies about it as part of like digital literacy, but not as part of the health and sex ed curriculum that I know of. So maybe I'm wrong on that, but so I guess I'm just saying that what I'd like to do is I would like to slow down and be a little more careful and make sure that we're doing it right, because I think it's really, really important to get this right. I think this is a really important issue for our kids. So I don't think it does any harm for us to like hold off and make sure we got it right.
Maybe someone can speak to that impact or that implication of delaying the decision.
And I also just wanted to say that, following state code doesn't necessarily mean it's best practices.
That's fair. I agree. But there's a reason for the committee being in place.
Yeah, and I agree, because I do respect the process.
Sure,
So,
I respect the process, I respect their work, but if Rick or Superintendent Nye, if you can comment on the implications for our teachers and for implementation of the curriculum, if we were to delay this, what impact that has.
Yeah, just due to the nature of our cycle and the committee's work, it would essentially delay the use of this material for the academic year. So we would bring it back around or review again in our next year's cycle.
So just to be clear, if we do not approve it today, we can't approve it in April, for example, and be able to use it next year?
There's no specific rules around that. I guess what I would highlight is the challenge. I think what we're seeing a little bit here is just the challenge of the committee work and being able to get the people together for the committee work around vetting these instructional materials. Truth be told is it's not too much of a challenge around employees, but it is very challenging when it comes to volunteers and people out in community to be able to carve out the time to participate. So when I give it a year cycle, I might be exaggerating, but it's essentially due to the challenges to get the group together to vet it and the feedback.
but I think the part of the process that I am challenging here is that no committee should be given curriculum that has not been first somehow vetted by us, not just for state code, but for best practices, right? And I think that's the piece that I'm questioning is was this vetted, and what did that vetting look like? Because I, as a parent, think that I would look at Fight the New Drug and say, yeah, I need to arm my kid with information about this, so yeah, let's send it. And I wouldn't have any information to understand, how, if this could positively or negatively impact them, because that's not my expertise, right? So I think that what is given to the committee and what that process looks like is the part of the process that I'm really asking questions about.
So Superintendent reminded me as well that if in that cycle, I neglected to mention that we do always have to have a public comment period. So that would come into play as well in that cycle. In terms of the expertise in vetting, I think quite simply, that can be a challenge. The degree to which we have experts, highly credentialed, highly research-based experts looking at all things is, I would be lying to you if I was to say that that is the degree across the board always. We don't have, on this committee, we don't have the level of credentials that this commenter perhaps had. We had a pediatrician that participated on the committee, but certainly it wasn't steeped in the therapeutic, et cetera, that the other commenter was. So that can be a challenge for us. We do have experts, though, in terms of the standards, in terms of understanding what's going on in other school districts, what's being taught. We lean on USBE around what curriculum is being used and the degree to which it aligns or doesn't align. So I don't want to dismiss the level of expertise that we have, because I do think, personally, I think we have the level of expertise to make a good decision on this. But if you're throwing up credentials and specialization and levels of research, the more you want to do that, the more challenging that is.
Rich, did you have something to clarify as far as
Just a timeline, right? So the timeline, and the timeline is where, as Rick has mentioned, there's some pieces that need to be put together. And you're thinking about, well, what does that look like for next year? Why does it take another year? When a teacher gets a new curriculum like this, they need time to get it planned and prepared for the upcoming year. And so if we were to extend that time, then essentially we're running up again to the beginning of school year, which is still, I mean, the board reserves the right. That's part of the process in terms of the approval, whether or not to approve or approve. It's just, yeah, it delays it, is all. A little bit longer than what we would think in terms of getting it ready by April or May. We just don't have that kind of runway on this right now.
I feel like that's, go ahead.
Sorry, Karen has a comment, and then Julie.
I just want to speak to this a little bit. So I dove in and did my own research, because I've heard Fight the New Drug, but I didn't know a ton about it. And so I've actually spoke to some experts that work closely with them to get similar to what you did, Julie, just kind of reaching out to your contacts, people you know, people you trust. And I've talked about this and kind of mentioned some of this feedback, fear-based, shame-based, business. They're a nonprofit. Of course, they're a business. They have to register that way. So I don't know how you can hold that against them as far as business. It's like they're not a... Anyway, and so...
I meant to say that was their only qualification.
You're right. But it's interesting, because as I dove in, they're very much anti-shame. I mean, there's articles on it. You look it up, you read through, you click links, you watch little videos. And so to me, in talking to people who've worked closely and seen a lot of successes in this program, to me, I actually came out with the opposite point of view, where I would actually fully support the curriculum that's within this sex ed material. I agree with Clark, porn is addictive, but they have a way, like the best way I can describe it in talking to these sources that I talked to the last little bit, is it's like the tobacco campaign, where you say, hey, here's the harm. If you choose to smoke, here's the harms of tobacco. You can still choose over here, but just realize if you choose this, it's going to come with this. And they try to get their information simplified in a way to say, hey, here's the potential harms of porn. So before you do this, just realize all of these things over here. So to me, it's kind of just the truth campaign, in essence, of putting that out there, and then saying basically, it's not meant to be fear-based. They don't shame you into, if they have whole articles on that. And so I actually come away with quite a different perspective on this one, which is why I initially moved to approve, because I think it's important to have that in our curriculum this year.
Go ahead, Julie.
I just wanted to point out that if our teachers don't get this curriculum until, say, September, it still gives them plenty of time to teach it in the second quarter, which this is not going to be a long unit, right? It gives them time to prepare and get ready for that. I was hoping that I could do a friendly amendment to the motion. I move that we get a little more data and information about this and bring it back next week
next month to vote on again. Yeah, I think we need a second if we want to have that motion.
There's already a motion on the table, however?
There's already a motion, so this would be
I
an amendment.
amended it. Substitute motion.
Next month. So there doesn't need to be a second? Okay, that's what I thought. Is there a second on that motion, the substitute, the amended? All right, so this goes back then to the original motion to pass the sex education. Kim, Connie, and Chris have not had an opportunity to speak. Go ahead.
I just
Kim.
have a small comment. Oh, go ahead. Do you want to go?
No, you're fine, go ahead.
Sorry, Kim. I thought we all sounded like Chris, Kim, so sorry.
Let's go ahead and have Kim.
There's a lot of K's up here.
I know
Yeah.
it is.
Watching those videos, I actually really liked them as well. I thought that they did a really good job. They were well done. I did not see the fear and shame concern that was in that comment. And so I think I would support them. I, on the other hand, have a concern with the other part of the curriculum that I think has some issues, which I'm happy to comment on once we were done with discussing this first part. So I'll let others comment.
Thank you.
Okay. I just had I've had to think this over because I do want to see both sides to make sure we're getting it right for our students. And I keep coming back to this is students, families can opt out of this. If they're not comfortable with this curriculum, they can opt out. This is one of the things that gives our parents that control still. So I just keep coming back to parents still have choices here, that if this is not what they want their students to, learn in school, they don't have to do that because they can opt out. And I did go to the website because I was also wanted to see, and I thought it had good information. And I feel like our parents are needing some more help in this department because I know there's a lot of students that are struggling with this, and parents are looking for resources and some help. And so I felt like this was helpful for them.
Connie, did you have any thoughts?
No, I don't really have it, other than the fact that parents have that option, and I think that's important.
And I just wanted to point out on the timeline thing, because of the nature of what's involved in looking at another curriculum and things like that, it does not obligate the board for lack of timeline to make a decision. It doesn't. The board always reserves that right. It was just seeking to explain why an April or May turnaround would be too short.
Let's go back to Kim.
Thanks. So I have some concerns with the Rape Recovery Center curriculum because, consent is often taught under the banner of sexual abuse prevention as it is here. And while that may be appropriate for adults, I think children are minors. In Utah, the age of consent is 18, except for some exceptions that aren't discussed at all in this curriculum. And so I don't think that instructing kids basically on how to consent is the right approach here. There's also no mention of parents, who should be the primary resource that kids turn to in this curriculum. Just a random trusted person is who they are referred to. So that particular curriculum I don't think is the right approach. Consequently, I would suggest maybe another substitute motion that allows us to break up the vote of the two different portions of the curriculum, because I would like to vote in support of the Brain Hard World materials. And so I would offer the substitute motion that we approve Brain Hard World curriculum individually or separately, and then revisit the second piece.
Okay, so we have a substitute motion to break these apart and approve individually the Brain Heart. Sorry, I don't have that part in front of me. Let me pull it up, sorry. The Brain Heart, what is it?
Brain Heart World.
Brain Heart World curriculum as a separate motion. Is there a second on that? All right, so motion fails. So we return to our original motion, which is to approve the sex education materials as a whole. Is there any further discussion on this? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, so we have 2 nays and 5 ayes. Motion carries. Thank you. I think it was a great discussion, regardless of how it went. We're going to move on to our reconfiguration discussion and turn the time over to Ben.
Board President, board members, and superintendency, I'm pleased to present some information with respect to the reconfiguration proposal for the Granger, Cypress, and Hunter Junior High networks. This has been a discussion and a topic for a long time, so regardless of the outcome, I'm glad that we're here and we can kind of finish up this conversation and put a bow on it and move on to some other more pressing items. So first I'll be discussing the reconfiguration process, the meeting dates and other items that took place, the research taken place by our third-party vendor, Lighthouse Research, and proceed with the formal recommendation. So, sorry, I don't know why that's in there. No idea. I don't know if I was like using the same template, you know, trying to put 2 presentations together for one board meeting in the same evening. So if you would like to discuss HB 84 a little bit more, I'm sure we could invite you to that meeting. So here's a couple of challenges that we wanted to express, and were kind of the impetus and the basis of creating the goal and the process in the first place for this final set of grade configuration. Cypress Network never considered a K-5 reconfiguration, as the 9th grade reconfiguration in their network consumed the Brockbank campus. And so it was not feasible for them to consider a K-5, 9, 12, K-5, 7, 8 grade configuration because they simply did not have the space and the facilities within their network. So that has kind of been on the back burner for that network in particular, even though we have heard interest from that community as we saw other networks pursue grade configuration over the last decade. Granger Network was in the process of initiating the grade configuration cycle, and we held the first of that meeting of that process, which was to review the process with the community. And a week later, there was an earthquake, and there's a lot of history there, but the building was no longer occupiable, and clearly we were unable to reconfigure that network given the current facility situation and circumstances. So additionally, as we initiated this process, there were some people who were hoping that we could complete that in time for the new facility to be opened in 2024. But as we were kind of walking through that process, we were uncomfortable allowing for that to even be a consideration in case some issue came up with respect to the rebuild. You obviously cannot reconfigure in the middle of a school year. And so if there was some reason why the building was not able to open on time, which is slated for this fall, then we would be kind of stuck in the mud. And so we pushed off any of those considerations and requests until the fall of 2025 as well, knowing that the Westlake facility, as you heard earlier this evening, would be well into its first year and ready to take on that additional population. The Hunter Junior Network is tied to the Cypress Network due to split feeders to both Cypress and Hunter High School. So they've kind of been caught in the middle of this. So as part of their grade configuration in their network, they universally approved 9th grade configuration, and then Kennedy and some of the other junior highs and elementary feeders several years ago, pre-COVID, switched over. They were unable to do so because they are again tied to Cypress as a split feeder, if that makes sense. So in the spring of 2020, step 1 of that old process was initiated, as I mentioned earlier, with Westlake. There was COVID and an earthquake. In the fall of 2021, there's a lot of detail on that bullet if you'd like me to go into it. I wouldn't be excited, but I would be happy to to share that. But in the fall of 2021, we had a new superintendent and Board of Education, and the direction at that time was to engage the community in a district-directed proposal instead of the old proposal, which kind of pushed that up from the grassroots and the community and the school community councils themselves. So we used essentially the same process, and I'm going to review that here in a second. In the spring and the fall of 2022, I went and visited each of the school community councils that were affected to review this process and this timeline and start putting together some of that base information. In the spring of 2023, we held those community-wide meetings. Those are the locations those were held at. Some of those were held in conjunction with the PAC study, if you recall. That was coincided with the boundary adjustments in that area. It seemed appropriate because people thought they were tied together anyway to kind of bring people together and answer those questions. In the fall of 2023, Lighthouse Research conducted a survey, and in December we shared those survey results with our school community councils, and that was conducted by our vendor. Most of you were present for that meeting. So this is, again, our process. We are now at step 4. We did add, at the board's request, some additional informational reconfiguration panels and open house style. I thought it was a great addition. We got a lot of good participation out of that. We recorded those and even live streamed 2 of them to make it more accessible to our families. Very appreciative of those panel members who are willing to come and share their thoughts and perspectives, both pro and con on grade configuration. So those meetings were held on these dates, kind of as a follow-up to that process. So I've identified some broad pros and cons here. I'm happy to go into additional details on items that we've identified or that have been shared with us with respect to the community. The one thing I did not include in the presentation are some of these issues that really are outside of the control or the bounds or the responsibility and authority of the school itself. And we saw this in the original grade configuration with 9th grade, where some families would say, well, I just don't want my kid to go to a school dance, right? And that's a legitimate emotional concern tied to that family's individual circumstances, but really has nothing to do with the intent of grade configuration, which is always to improve academic outcomes and opportunities for students. So I've identified a few of these here. I'm not going to go into depth unless there are specific questions. You guys have heard these at the meetings themselves and heard many other pros and cons identified by community members themselves. So these are more of the broad general ones, as well as some cons that we've identified and that we continue to extend concern and want to make sure that we're addressing as part of any sort of transition or reconfiguration process. So we have identified, again, as I just mentioned, considerations that should be taken as we work through this process. And one thing we've really tried to convey to these communities, and it was helpful to have those additional panels and open houses, because we could talk about how, while each of these respective communities that have gone through reconfiguration before kind of did it a little bit differently in terms of how they welcomed and transitioned 6th graders into their schools, the process by which they approved that was essentially the same. A lot of community feedback and input through their school community council. We've had good meetings with our administrators in these areas and reminded them that if this were to go through, and regardless, they should be building those relationships with their network feeders and starting to break down any concerns or barriers that might exist as a result of people's hesitation for sending their students to a junior high. I have some additional information with respect to special education, behavior challenges, outcome. Behavior is certainly something we need to address again, regardless of grade configuration. We heard that loud and clear in a few of these meetings, and I felt like our administrators were prepared and wanting to address a number of those issues. Academic outcomes, I'll be addressing that in a slide as well. Absenteeism continues to be a challenge in our middle school model, and so that's something we need to continue to work and address and support from the district level as well at the school level. And then again, as we work to ensure that school level support for that key group that comes in together, those 6th and 7th graders, to have appropriate events and activities and interventions and supports for those students in place as that works, as that gets implemented. So I worked with Dr. Day from our special education. He expressed some concerns with the current model. As most of our special classes are only K-5, it appears that the bulk of our junior highs that house the next special class for some students are not in the same network, meaning that we might have a student participate in K through 5, say in the Cypress network, but the nearest unit that houses that next grade level is not in their particular network. So these students typically that are affected by this are living on the edge of those capture areas for those programs where they're designated to participate, and then we have to in turn provide transportation to that appropriate location. So we have a handful of schools that are impacted by this, and you can see those and where those are at. And again, if we continue with our current grade configuration model, the concern is that we are forcing certain students who need the most help and support in some instances to be in 3 different schools in 3 different years based on that grade configuration and how that's played out. We have some other considerations with respect to academic outcomes, and this has been a source of conversation within ELT, and again, working to ensure appropriate district level supports to help our schools to make sure that we're focusing on making sure that transitions to a K-5, 6, 8 model is successful and that our 6th graders have every opportunity to succeed. So we do have some data here. I'm not going to go through these in detail, but unless there's specific questions, and I have some other folks who can help me answer any of those questions that might come our way. Currently, statistically indeterminate with a lack of year-to-year data for reconfiguration, the impacts on COVID on those same metrics. We're talking about 6th grade, whether it's in the elementary or in the junior high. So we have a lot of data, but there's a lot of other variables that come into play and so it's indeterminate whether we're seeing a larger degree of success on those academic outcomes in and of itself. The statistics have generally proven over time, more importantly, and we say this, I said this in several of the meetings, that parental engagement is the key factor, followed very closely by the teacher's impact on a child's success in their school. And so continuing to work to enhance parental engagement is going to improve academic outcomes regardless of the grade configuration. Absenteeism, again, the rates of absenteeism seem to be similar, so we don't see a profound impact one way or another, or attendance improves at the elementary level and or the junior high level, and so that appears to be more of a familial variable as opposed to a specific grade configuration. And then as we compared academic grades, when comparing 6th graders in elementary schools to those in junior high, selected networks that have reconfigured show a positive net impact on academic grades when 7th grade students were in the 2nd year of junior high school compared to when they transitioned to junior high as a 7th grader. So we are seeing there could be some challenges on that first year, regardless of whether it's 6th grade or 7th grade, because they are transitioning, as we indicated in the con slide, to a new environment. And so again, providing appropriate interventions, supports, building connections, as many of our schools are trying to do with that first grade level as it enters, whether it's 9th grade, 7th grade, or 6th grade, can make a huge difference as well. And then again, encouraging parental engagement as part of that process will help overcome some of these cons that we're seeing. Again, the amount of duration of instruction is a significant mitigating factor in student performance, and something that we continue to evaluate as well. So survey details, unless there are specific questions, this is a summary slide. I'm going to fly through this information. I think I've shared this with the board in the past. It's been made available, the full slide deck, on our reconfiguration page on the website that we've shared with these 3 networks on multiple occasions to make sure people have access to the information. When we went out to Lighthouse Research, we wanted a survey that had a margin of error of less than 5%. That's a pretty much industry standard when they do presidential election surveys and polling data. That's the margin of error they're looking for. They feel fairly confident about that, and statisticians, or nerds as I like to call them, can explain that a lot better than I can. The concept here is we want to make sure that we have a representative sample from each of those networks and the schools that participate. So we have a decent sample size from each of the schools represented within that network. So the survey was actually sent out by the school district with a link to the third-party survey company. And if we did not have, it was sent in English and Spanish, so families could participate based on an IP address, and obviously collated other demographic information to, again, make sure we were getting an appropriate sample size, not just for the network itself, but from each of the schools represented within that feeder. So you can see the dates when that was administered, if and when they had insufficient response rate. We don't normally look at self-selecting surveys as a great survey tool unless you get a sufficient sample size. And so just like our school satisfaction survey, our statisticians were looking for a certain amount of response rate to ensure that they were getting to that margin of error and make sure that the data was credible. If they did not, they then followed up with that respective school or feeder and demographic to make sure that with phone call surveys to complete the survey and make sure they had an appropriate amount of samples represented in each of those surveys. So to break down those results, Hunter Junior first, and these are in no particular order. I just literally cut and copied the slide deck over from Lighthouse and eliminated the slides that weren't summary in nature. So you can see the breakdown there. I left which schools those students may participate in. You can see the sample size when each of those respectively. Here's an interesting question, and I always like to point this out. We sent an information packet twice. We sent it 2 weeks before the survey was included in the link, and then we sent the survey packet, the information packet again with the survey link. And that information contained pro and con statements and vision statements from each of the schools for which the survey participants would, at the schools that they would attend, that they're boundaried to. So it's interesting that only 58% received the packet when in fact 100% of them did. And then again, of those 58%, 63% reviewed that information. So I attribute this to most electoral polls. When you ask somebody if they are registered to vote or if they voted in the most recent election, overwhelmingly, statisticians will tell you that people say, yes, I did, when in fact, they didn't. And so, unfortunately, we like to think, it's one of our biases as individuals, like to think the best of ourselves, and we certainly would never want to admit that we have not participated in an election if we're being asked by a survey company. And comparably, I attribute that most people are like, well, I didn't get that information. I would have read it, of course. So perhaps that's an appropriate explanation. Remains to be seen. Okay. This one is the highest net support. That's the plus or minus of those two components, the 50% and the 32%. Our survey company would indicate the 18%. We always, whenever we share this data with communities, the one side or the other, it never fails, always try to say that that middle should be with them, right? But our statistician made it clear that no, in fact, those individuals have opted themselves out and their survey information is accurate. When they indicate that they're neutral or unsure, they are in fact neutral and unsure, and we should not account them as part of the opposition and or for the support. So in this particular case, net support, as I've been doing these reconfiguration surveys with third-party companies, is the highest amount of net support I've seen for a K5, 6, 8 grade configuration. Most of these fall within the 48% to 55%. I think I've seen as high as a 58%, but then with as you take that net support, that margin is really usually close. And so it's usually about 10 to 12% at the high. So this indicates to me that most of our families have already kind of accepted the fact that the grade configuration is probably going to happen. So they're looking to know and understand the benefits of that, and that could potentially indicate that support. Again, the margin of error for those non-nerds like myself, the margin of error in this case, if it's a plus or minus 5%, you could take that net support and it could be as high as 23%, or it could be as low as 13%. I can do math. And again, you could add 5 points to the opposition. The opposition could literally be as high as 37% or as low as 27%, so on and so forth. So again, that's why that margin of error, we want that to be as low as possible to give our survey credibility. This was the breakdown on the schools themselves. So Whittier was the closest with a 42 to 38, again, within the margin of error, which is pretty normal, again, as we've seen from previous surveys. Ninth grade configuration is much more popular in terms of people understanding it than and supporting it than the K5, 6, 8 has traditionally been. I'm actually kind of interested to see and go back with our families who have a K5, 6, 8 grade configuration and do another survey and see how well they support it, because I've only received 1 or 2 comments in the period of time saying, how do we go back to that old grade configuration? And so it might be an interesting study outside of the scope of this study and this decision to find out how that's working well for our families and to see if that support has increased or decreased. Again, West Valley 44 to 32, Orchard well outside the margin of error in terms of support, as is Hillside. I thought I took out all these slides. Sorry, we're doing a rehash here. I think I know what happened. I shared her the link and said it's not up to date yet, and she downloaded an earlier version that wasn't the final version. So I apologize for that. Here's our Cypress results. I'm not going to go through this in detail. I know that they struggled to get results at Lake Ridge and had to go back and follow up with additional phone calls. And there's actually like an 80-page final report that I sent to you as well a few months ago after the survey was completed that kind of goes through in detail some of those types of questions. Again, 43% indicated they received the packet, and of those, a little more than half indicated that they reviewed it. Again, a reminder, everybody was sent the packet 2 different times. I'm going to go to the net support. Again, the second highest net support that I've seen in any of these types of surveys for a K5, 6, 8 grade configuration. Here's the breakdown on those schools. What I would also point out is we have seen some schools who are having behavior issues with 6th graders show a greater inclination and support to get those 6th graders over to the junior high. And comparably or conversely, if you're having a great 6th grade experience in your elementary school, you're going to view this as it ain't broken, let's not fix it type of scenario. And that is compounded in the results as we've seen them. Again, going now to Granger, this is your breakdown on this one. I wanted to point out one anomaly that we did see in this particular subset of data. 30%, a little less than a third of the population is coming from Armstrong. Again, this was a self-selecting survey out of the gate, and then they followed up with phone calls where they had an insufficient sample size. They didn't need as large of a sample size in this particular network for each respective school because they have a lot more schools to pull data from. That being said, 30% from one school has a potential to skew that data. I would dare say that Armstrong Academy probably has a higher degree of parents who are active and engaged, which probably demonstrates the response rate. And then additionally, I would dare say that they're having an amazing experience as 6th graders at Armstrong Academy. So that probably accounts for this particular result here. What's interesting about this is this is fairly typical. This is what we've seen in a number of other surveys where that net support is closer to 50-50. In this particular case, again, remember the margin of error, the opposition could be as high as 45% or as low as 35%, and the support as high as 43% or as low as 33%. So I'm not I'm not surprised by this result. And we did hear from these families at the Valley meeting, and there was a lot of questions and concerns about behaviors in our junior highs. And so with respect to that, as I went around to the school community councils, those were the same concerns I was hearing early on in the process. Is I'm nervous about sending my kids to junior high. Junior high is a little more rough. Again, some of those behavior questions and challenges which we should be addressing regardless of grade configuration were prevalent. So you can see here again, Armstrong, one of the larger supports, Rolling Meadows also in that same arena. And then you can see a couple of these schools. Farnsworth was slightly in favor. You can see that Granger Elementary within the margin of error with a large amount of people who are unsure or neutral on the question. Hillsdale was supportive, Monroe very supportive, Pioneer within the margin of error, very close. Either way, with a large amount. I've not seen in any of our surveys, usually we'll have about 10 to 12% of people neutral or unsure. We see a lot more in this particular network of those in the 20% plus range of being unsure or neutral on the question. And 52% support at Stansbury, and Valley Crest was almost a 2-to-1 margin in favor.
Ben, can you go back to that slide?
Please.
It's a little unclear on the bottom. Is the the support got somehow moved? Is that, I'm assuming the dark orange should be the ones that support.
That is correct. Thank you for that clarification. I don't know why it edited that way. So I did actually have another slide here, and I'm going to pull up my other final presentation that apparently didn't get through, just to make sure I didn't miss any content. But with that, I would, that really does conclude the bulk of the presentation, and I'd be happy to address any questions.
As this is an action item, Ben, what is the final recommendation on this?
Thank you. I'm going to pull up that slide on my actual presentation. Okay, good. It is the, so my last slide just indicates questions, discussions, and recommendation. It is the recommendation of the Granite District Administration that the Board of Education adopt the following motion. Move to adopt a K5-6-8 grade configuration for the Cypress, Granger, and Hunter Junior networks and feeders to be implemented in the 2025 school year. That is our recommendation.
2025-2026 school year, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Can we just say so moved to get it on, and then we'll open up to discussion?
Todd smiled and nodded, so that's always a good thing.
Okay, Karen has made a motion.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion, questions? Kim, go ahead.
We had a specific request from Valley Junior parents that we consider each network separately in our vote, so that we could consider their concerns about their network and school in particular. Is there any appetite for that?
So I actually have been asking Rich that very question, and he has it in front of him, but because they are tied together, we do have split feeders within all of these networks. We have an elementary that split feeds to Hunter Junior as well as Westlake. If we vote no on one, it would affect the other one that same way. So it's really hard to separate them out, but we can certainly, if that's what is wanted, we can certainly entertain that.
So did you move that? No, but if there's no appetite from anyone else, that will not.
I understand the concern about it. It is hard when there is a split feeder like that.
But I do appreciate you bringing that up, Kim, because we did hear that feedback. So thank you for mentioning that. I forgot that.
Yeah, and I want them to be aware that we did not forget that, right?
Absolutely.
So on that note, I do have some other comments. Just first wanted to thank Ben for all of the time and effort. I know there's so many meetings, so many people you have to talk to. You probably have to repeat the same thing 1,000 times over to different people, including to all of us.
It's kind of like a teacher.
Right. Sorry. Yeah, so it's frustrating because I know you still get feedback that people feel communication was insufficient. I don't really know how we do it any better. You know, we tried very hard to communicate. I did hear feedback of, like I mentioned earlier, that the panel discussions were well received, and I think that was a good idea to do that. I also, reviewed the data. I've gone through comments. At the end of the day, I had, I think, a lot of people in my precinct specifically that reached out to me or that I spoke to that had concerns with reconfiguration that have to do with behavior issues. And with the emotional health and safety, I know that was listed as one of the pros, but it was a concern for a lot of parents. And I don't know that we address that concern necessarily, or give a solution for it. And I just come to the conclusion myself that I feel like that maybe is an issue that we should address first before we put kids into that situation. And so I guess where I land is being a voice for those people, for those parents. And so I know you're hearing a lot of no's from me tonight, but I will end up voting no for that reason. I want them to know that they have a voice in this whole reconfiguration. But at the same time, again, I recognize the huge amount of effort that's been put into this and getting feedback and trying to do what's right for the district. So, thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Any other?
I just want to say that why it's not going to be ever 100% or everyone all in or whatever. But I have not heard a lot of negative comments. Most are looking forward to it in my precinct. And so I think they know that anything going in is going to be different. And so I'm glad we have a full year to look at how to improve some behaviors before we get to moving in our students. So I think with this time frame, we can help student behaviors now and get some good processes in, and then also get our junior highs ready for those sixth graders. I think that's key. And I think the communities, a lot of the meetings they spoke to, how do I get involved? And they were very excited to want to participate on community council and different things for the junior highs to help those sixth graders have a better, I think they kind of knew this was going to happen is how they felt. Because I think they're kind of looking forward to it. I think they kind of want that configuration. It according to the people I've spoke with and the information from my precinct. So I appreciate all the hard work by Ben and Steve, and it's a lot of work to go through and get this ready and to figure out. And I just appreciate all the hard work that I think the parents will also continue now to go, okay, once it's voted on, they know what's going to happen with their kid, and they can start supporting that.
Julie?
It's been really helpful to talk to some parents from the Granger Network and especially to have those meetings and to be able to talk one-on-one and listen to those concerns and then to go and find, these are really valid questions. So how do we answer these questions? And for the most part, to come back and realize, I see how some of these concerns are going to be resolved by increasing the population at these schools, at the junior high, by moving from a 7-8 to a 6-7-8 model. And also seeing some of those effects in my own schools as I watched my schools change and bring in the sixth grade. And so on the one hand, it's been really great to listen to those patrons who don't like this idea from the Granger Network and to go and get answers to those questions. And some of those I do not have answers for that I think are positive. But I think that the costs that they bring up are going to be outweighed by the benefits. And I also see that some of those costs we're going to fix over time. And the other thing I was going to say is that I do believe that overall, we have a majority of people who support this. So while those people who don't support it have been very important because they have helped us to see areas where we're going to make this process smoother and more effective, I also do not think that, I think that overall we're receiving support for this idea. So I really support the idea too.
Yeah, I mean, Kim and I share kind of the Granger network, and I think we've both heard similar things. There's people who are okay with it. There's people who are okay with it with a few concerns, and then there's people who obviously are a little bit more against it. And, you know, as board members, that's hard to reconcile because we're up here, we're making a vote, and it's like, how can you make everybody happy with your vote? And I learned a long time ago you can't. And so what we have to do is just make our votes with the best information we have and trying to reconcile things in our own head and what we truly believe is best for kids moving forward. And that's kind of where I land. You know, I know as far as like Frost Elementary, they have a rocking 5th and 6th grade program right now. And so their trepidation isn't necessarily 6th grade moving up. It's disrupting what the good work that's happening in their school. So there's, you know, you can look at individual schools and hear their individual community concerns, and every community is a little bit different. And so as I've gone to community councils and these outreach nights, you know, some are going to be okay with this, and some are going to maybe go a little bit more kicking and screaming. But you know, we'll help them. We'll hold their hands the best we can and move them over, and they'll be okay. As I talk on them, you know, either a small group or one-on-one, they know that, you know, that this was probably going to happen, and I think they've, for the most part, accepted it. But I just want the parents out there who may not be as happy to know that we hear you, that weighs on us, that, like Julie mentioned, like Kim mentioned, that feedback is still really helpful because it makes us go into these transitions knowing more what to be aware of and what supports need to be in place. And behavior is a very top concern out in the Granger network. The good news is Valley Junior and Westlake Junior, they are so excited to get these 6th graders through their doors. Both principals are excited and making plans and getting ready for them to come. And so I think we can celebrate the transition, and as well as, you know, do a lot of background work to make sure those supports and those extra transition pieces are in place to make it as smooth as possible. And Ben, on another note, what is the first year that somebody reconfigured? How many years have we been going through this reconfiguration process, network by network, painfully slow?
I would rather not remember, but if you're going to ask, we started our first grade configuration with the opening of Granger High School. It was 9th grade configuration. Cottonwood requested it the same year and went through the process, and I think people think these were given at that time, but the community did not support it, and we did not proceed at that point in time. And then as other grade configurations went, Skyline was the first to do not just 9th grade, but they did a wholesale K-5, 6, 8, 9, 12 configuration because they saw the challenge of the junior highs being shrunk to the point where they were having to eliminate opportunities for students. And so after that, most of the other networks followed suit.
Okay, so the short answer to my question is we've been doing this for 10 years.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to say after tonight's vote, reconfiguration is done. So it's been a long, arduous 10 years.
Unless people want to go back.
Unless people want to go back.
Connie and Clark, did you have anything to add?
You're opening the door, Nicole.
Go ahead, Connie.
Did you have anything, Clark? Connie, go ahead.
So Armstrong has kids from lots of different areas. So is there a junior high that will accept them, or will those 6th graders need to go to where they live?
So the program is designed that they can continue that STEM focus at Westlake, and there has been traditionally capacity for them to do so. Okay. But they're obviously a little bit limited in their current facility, and then that will be addressed this fall with their new facility.
Sure.
So but you're correct, and I think that lends itself to the outcome itself. We did not ask the survey company to disaggregate about their boundary school. It was the school that they were currently attending. And so that's why you will see again that outsized response.
And is there a way that we can put 2025, 2026 school year in that, just because the kids are graduating in 2025 from the 24-25 year, just to clarify that it's not this fall.
I changed it on the slide, so that's as good as done in my book. And I will make sure this slide deck, the completed slide deck, is the one in the board record.
Thank you. I just want to recognize, Kim, I appreciate that you are representing those parents that have concerns. And I know, having gone through this most recently, Taylorsville Network was the last one to go through this. And I recognize those concerns are real. And those parents, you know, I appreciate that their concern is for their kids. I know my 11-year-old went to 6th grade this year, and she was absolutely terrified. And she did okay. She's okay. She is very, very young, she doesn't turn 12 until the end of May. But she has done okay. And I think, having gone through it for 10 years, it was just interesting to sit I sat at a community council meeting at Benyon a few weeks ago, and they actually brought this up, and they said, how can we help? We just have gone through this. We'd love to help. And talked to Karen Jorgensen, who said, I was adamantly opposed to this, and it has been a fantastic thing. So it was just really interesting. So we have parents who are willing and want to help. So let your community know that as well. I think, honestly, I've expressed this before. Being a teacher in a small school can be a very difficult thing, especially if it's a junior high. There's programs that we lose and opportunities for these kids that they miss out on, and that hurts my heart. I want them to have those opportunities. So I think it is a good thing for us to have a good size to be able to offer the programs and the supports to these students. So I do agree with that as well. So
on that, I know I'm very familiar with that family you just mentioned, and with their daughter, who happens to be a lot shorter than me. And I actually asked her one day, so how do you like 6th grade and the junior high? And she goes, I just get really used to staring at backpacks. because she said, and I just looked right at her and I said, I feel your pain. I feel your pain. Anyway, so it was just, but that was the funny part of it. And then I said, no, really, how's it going? And she goes, it's going great. I love it.
Yeah, they're doing really well there. So, and you know, not every junior high is created equally. I will fully recognize that. But you know, we've got some great principals at these, especially these 2 junior highs, and I think we're on a solid ground with going forward. So, all right, we have a motion on the table. If there's no further comments or discussion, we will go ahead and vote on this. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you so much, Ben. We will move on to our information item, which is school fees. And I'm assuming we're inviting Craig and Steve up.
It's not going up on the screen. Will it switch, Ben? Oh, thank you, board leadership and superintendent. For those of you that are in the streaming audience or audience behind us, my name is Craig Stauffer. I am the Director of Secondary Schools, and my colleague Steve Pershawn is going to also help present with me. He's also a director, and then Assistant Superintendent John Welburn will be here to help answer questions as well. We are here to propose for you the first reading of the 24-25 fee schedule. What we want to share with you, just to make sure we're clear, is that the 23-24 fee law requires that the Granite Board will look at the fee maximum schedule and as a reading and approve that. The board will also review Granite District board fee policy, along with the fundraising policy and the donation policy, and that this will be shared in 2 public meetings allowing for community input regarding the policy and fees. So we will have this on the website, available for any comments that we will share for you in the second reading.
Sorry, real quick, board, just so you're aware, we waited this long to do it because of the legislative session. It will come back next week for us for a vote. So this is a first reading, and then we will vote on it as a second reading next time.
Next week or next month?
Next week. It has to be done by April 1st.
Thank you.
And I'm sure many of you are aware of House Bill 415 that does change quite a few things with fee law. And so we are going to present for you next year's fee schedule, and then we will be making many adjustments in order for us to meet the guidelines of that law that will be implemented for the 25-26 school year. So that will change again, but we'll go through the changes that will make us compliant, along with your approval for any changes in fees as we go through the schedule. First off, we're going to propose for you the new senior high school fee schedule, and we will zoom in on each of the areas for this fee schedule. You have the legends in front of you, but the legend is if there are colored changes, then that means we're making changes. So for the first change would be under physical education on-campus course. The original fee was at $15. It was recommended by our PD department and curriculum specialists that we increase that due to some of the costs with transportation and just overall increase in equipment costs. And so the fee committee looked at that. What we do as a fee committee is we look at recommendations, and then from there we pool or find out, survey from all of the high schools and what they recommend if they are in favor of this, and as long as the majority are, and then it's also approved by the committee that is involving parents as well, that we make that recommendation to you. There also is a proposal at Hunter High School for an outdoor lifetime recreation course. It does have standards and curriculum, and because they will be renting equipment like paddle boards and that type of thing, there is a fee of $125 that's recommended for that course. We also have a recommendation to add a world language fee. We haven't ever had that on there, and so that we could have different cultural events and activities for world language within that class, that fee has been recommended. Question?
Is that, I just wondered, reading that world language sounds like a class. Is that foreign language?
Yes, so all foreign language classes could potentially charge for that fee.
Is that going to be clear labeling it as world language, or does it need to be labeled as foreign language? Just wondering.
Yes.
There's been a shift to call it world language rather than foreign language.
Okay. I just want to make sure that, like, parents aren't going to look at that and go, my child is not taking world language. Why am I paying $15?
Yeah, that's usually how it's listed on the registration cards as well.
Okay, just want to make sure.
That's a great question, Nicole. And I should have mentioned that, yeah, it's just been a transition at the state, well, nationwide, to call it world languages, but they're each an individual foreign language.
And just to clarify, these are maximum amounts, so if I am a dance teacher, I can charge nothing.
That is correct.
It doesn't automatically mean I'm charging $15.
Correct. These are the maximum amounts, and we've developed a spend plan that each of our advisors, coaches go through, and one of the parts of the tool does not allow them to spend more than what that maximum fee is. So, and then that's approved by the administration. So that is correct, Julie. The second part of this is co-curricular, extracurricular courses. The first and left side is some increases on individual sports. We haven't made adjustments on individual sports maximum since 2019-20 school year. So it's been a long time. So we definitely could increase all of these by a certain amount, but as a committee, we look at the needs of schools and individual sports and what they recommend, and then again survey all of the schools to make those adjustments. So we do this based on sports needs rather than just the overall inflation costs. And so these particular sports have made a request. It's due to many things, but primarily inflation that has to do with supervision, transportation, referee costs, and then equipment and uniforms. So the request is to increase cross-country up to 200, football up to 900, soccer to 550, track to 300, and then wrestling up to 600. Going over to the question, Julie.
Me, that's okay.
Kim, sorry.
Just as a reminder, so even if we're charging these fees, fundraising is an option as a means to pay the fees, right?
Very good. Yes, for this current fee maximum, fundraising is still defined as a fee, and so all of these include that maximum, and we incorporated that when that fee law came into place. If you're familiar with the new fee law, it will take that wording out of there, and so you will see these all drop drastically because we will not include fundraising beginning in the 25-26 school year.
Thanks.
Sorry. You can fundraise above and beyond this. You're saying you cannot.
That is correct. So this is the maximum that an individual can be charged out of pocket and for team fundraising. Now, there is the option to provide individual fundraising. If you do that, that could actually take care of part of your out of pocket, but it doesn't. We ask our coaches to look at what they find is, or what they feel will be the expectation that they need to support the program, and that's what they shoot to fundraise for. Now, if a fundraiser does go up and above and beyond, then we save that money within the program, and we look at what we're going to use that for in the next spend plan, along with what we're going to use, require for out-of-pocket and fundraising.
And because this has on it that this should pay for busing and ref fees and things like this, there should be no fundraising for buses or fundraising for ref fees. Is this right?
So what has previously happened before this fee law? I think I'm going to try to do my best to answer your question. There was in place that we could charge a transportation fee along with a participation fee, and each school then used those monies to help pay for officials and transportation and supervision. When the fee law changed and we had to incorporate that within the program, so we had to be able to show everything that we're spending for that program, we took away those individual pieces of that fee for transportation and the participation fee. So what's now taking place is that has to be transferred onto the students, and so it becomes part of that spend plan, which is included in the fundraising. So we do actually fundraise to help pay for all of those things.
So there was a change to the law.
Correct.
That says that we will no longer receive funding from the government or, from the state to pay for transportation for this, or is this? It's a state law, but it's unfunded? It's a mandate from the state, it's not a board policy.
Yeah, no, the change was primarily that we could no longer charge for textbooks and that we had to provide a spend plan for transparency for parents for each individual sport or activity. The district, I believe, is giving money through the WPU that they then allocate out to schools that cover some of those costs, but not all of those costs. And so that's why we then need to still continue to charge fees to be able to support these individual sports.
So is it possible that I have coaches who already had a spend plan that did not include transportation, and now they're saying, oh, I already had a spend plan, but now I didn't realize we have to pay for transportation, so we're going to have to go fundraise for our buses. Is this possible that this is happening this year?
It is possible, and it did end up happening as we looked at the financial responsibility of each school and what they were spending all of their student monies on. And so we asked them to make those adjustments so that they could be fiscally responsible by the end of the year with their budgets.
So it's a temporary issue because it's going to be fixed next year?
That's what we believe. So it will still be, with each individual spend plan, they'll be responsible for all of the costs that support their program, but it will be placed within the fee schedule and taken care of for this year and including in the 25-26 school year.
Okay.
Yes.
I've had a lot of patrons contact me. Why am I fundraising for buses? And I think it's a really good question. And maybe we can even have more conversation, maybe with you and me, Steve, because I think you probably understand the issue better than anybody afterwards. I don't know, is it unique to my schools? Has anybody else heard anything about this?
It's not unique.
Okay.
I'm
Very
sure
good.
we will as things, when are the spend plans due? Have they already been turned in for next year?
They have not. We require them to be due by June 1st. And so the current link that patrons can view would be for this year's fees, because you still have all of your spring sports and then those activities that happen during this time that still students may have to still pay for as far as fees and to be able to view those spend plans. And so we ask all of our coaches to have, and they have to be done prior to registration for the next year.
So just to clarify, so for the upcoming spend plans next, that are due June 1st, they'll have transportation costs listed on that spend plan?
Correct.
Okay.
But because these costs, I mean, these fees are not increased, it means that they will have suddenly a huge expense that they will have to put into their, I mean, buses are expensive, right? So, I mean, are these allocated correct? Is this the correct increase when we consider that they're going to now have a huge increase on something like buses that legally they have to take to every away game?
Sure. At this point, with our survey with each of our principals who went to their coaches and their athletic directors, they feel like it because we have not, for the most part, met these maximums. We've been underneath that enough that they feel like they'll be able to cover them. I think maybe what comments or concerns you're getting is that maybe that their out-of-pocket was $100 and they had to fundraise $100, which might have been a total of $200, and then they realized transportation, so they had to add another $100 or $150 to that spend plan. It still met the threshold of the maximum.
They just were charging so far under the maximum
Correct.
that, yeah, that makes sense.
What about, kind of going back to what you said before with donations, is that separate, like above and beyond, let's say they say, okay, our spend plan, we're raising $900 for football. What if after all that is said and done, somebody comes in and says, well, I want to make a donation to the program of $20,000. Is that considered on top of that fee? Is that just a donation flat out? Is that it? Take any part of the fee?
So it's, do you want to answer?
It would depend on how that donation was earmarked. Sometimes donations come for specific projects within the program, but if they made a donation to help cover cost of fees, then yes, it could be transferred into the program for that purpose, and then they could readjust how much they're actually charging the students to take that in consideration. Does that make sense?
Yeah, my question is specific. Let's talk after.
There's actually a line in the spend plan for that too, for donations.
Okay.
So it can be incorporated within that spend plan and looked at for the whole program in general, and it could be something that's just on top of what they've already produced, and then they can use that in a way to support the program now and in the future.
Okay, thank you.
On the right-hand side, we do have a couple of adjustments. You can see that we used to have Granite Youth Symphony, and it was $250. After meeting with the Performing Arts, we found out that there is an advanced and a youth or an intermediate youth symphony, and that it wasn't required that they were in high school or junior high to meet those. They could possibly be in high school and be in the intermediate level, or they could be in junior high or middle school and be in the advanced level, and that they weren't charging that total. They were charging what we have there as the recommendation of $70 and $85. So we put both of them on the senior high schedule, and we will also include both of them on the junior high schedule. So depending on where their level of expertise and where they fall as far as intermediate and advanced, they will be charged accordingly.
Can I ask who you asked that about? Was that Noemi or was that?
That came from Noel. Converse is on the committee, which came from Noemi.
Okay. I'm questioning that because it's never been called Granite Intermediate. It's been called junior youth and senior youth
And that,
for more than 50 years. So I would suggest that we change that so that it's consistent with what it is called. And from what I understand, they have never had junior high kids are in the junior youth and senior high kids are in the senior youth. So I would suggest maybe that we ask.
Double check that.
Yeah, ask the
You bet.
directors, not, I love Noemi, but not Noemi.
okay, no, that is something we'll take note and make an adjustment if we need to, for sure. I think that the advanced and the intermediate might have been the actual fee committee that were coming up with wordage there. But the piece about whether or not they can qualify at the junior high or the high school, that's something that we need to check on, and we'll bring back to you, okay? We also have an advisor-run district performing fine arts camp, and that was something to try to improve or promote those programs, and we put a maximum there primarily based on the fact that fine arts materials could reach up to that total cost, and so we put that as a maximum. If it was a performing arts camp and they didn't require as much, they're welcome to charge anything under that maximum again. We did add the word sports then just directly across from that to make sure that we were separating the difference between sports camps and then our fine arts and performing arts camps. Down below in dances, this one's, I will do the very best I can to explain. We have charged $25 per couple in dances. Trends have changed where most individuals now are going individually to dances rather than as a couple. And so we felt that it would be better to change that to 15 as an adjustment. And that, again, that increase with 2 people would be to $30. And that comes primarily from the venues, the cost of supervision, and getting your DJs to come and share the music at those events have increased. We also have a dance, dinner dance at some schools, and so they go to the dance, and they also are provided dinner, and so we made that adjustment that would be $40 per individual student if they like to attend that event. Down at the very bottom, let's see, other admissions, we added the word registration because sometimes that they are not called admissions, they're a registration for the individual event, and so we added that to make sure that we encompassed all different off-campus events. And then finally, we added commencements so that that individuals that are going to go through that commencement process will help paying for the rental of the gowns along with the facility costs to provide that graduation.
Can I follow up on that? Go ahead, Kim, please.
Sorry, thank you, Clark. I have more of a comment than anything. I think, a lot of these fees are activities that are more or very clearly optional. Students choose to participate in them. I'm still astounded by some of the amounts, frankly. I mean, $2,000 that you have to come up with to participate in drill team. It's not that you have to, but you could potentially go that high, right? That's a lot of money. But all of that aside, the commencement one I find super interesting and frankly don't like it. That we could be charging kids to participate in graduation. Don't like that one at all. That one feels less, you're saying, well, maybe it's optional, maybe you don't come. But I think pretty much everyone wants to be there, right? So I don't know if you have more background on that or why we're
Sure.
adding that in.
I can share with you. So remember that each of the things that we put on our fee schedule are fee waiverable, and so we have to be able to put those items on that list. There was a time prior to the 2019-20 fee law that it was considered a completely optional, and so it went under the fines on the very last document that we're going to end up sharing with you in this PowerPoint. The fee law changed saying that no, this is part of the high school experience. And so because of that, we needed to include that if we were going to charge that students for the portion of being able to participate. The cost itself is usually close to $28 for the rental of the gown, and then the schools pay for part of the graduation facility and the district puts in the other portion to pay for that. So it was just to help cover some of those costs when that changed from being a fine versus a fee, or a non-waivable fine versus a fee.
Clark.
So this includes the gown rental? So they no longer have to pay the, I can't think of his.
Yeah, and I should have mentioned, and I apologize, Kim, prior to the fee law as well, because we moved it to this that is included on fees and made it fee waivable, students went to the actual company and rented their gowns. So that's what they did before. However, we cannot share with them what students are on fee waiver. So by that, we took that all on, that responsibility on ourselves.
Yeah, and so what I'm getting from what you're saying is that previously we weren't able to help them out in this. Moving it here means we can help those who need it.
A lot easier. There were times when it was not always clear for Jostens, like who was on the fee waiver list and who wasn't. We tried to communicate that. The other thing that we also have is anytime even if a student doesn't qualify for fee waiver, they can meet with the administration, and we've never turned away a student from graduation or to receive a cap and gown. The gowns are rented now because they're more high quality than they've ever been. The ones that they used to purchase were not of high quality, but the ones we rent now are. That's why they return them. But they do get to keep the cap and tassel.
Clerk.
So will students going forward pay the school for their gown rental, or will they continue to pay directly to Jostens?
They would pay this graduation fee, which would cover that cost. They will not have to pay Jostens.
They will pay it to the school?
Correct.
And did I hear correctly, your estimate is that the gown is $28, and so the students are paying $12 toward facility rentals?
Correct, and the supervision involved with all that as well.
Okay. Just a quick comment regarding the facility rentals. I guess I'd be interested to hear from this group briefly how we got to where we are today in renting facilities for graduation versus holding graduation at our individual high schools. I know we don't have auditoriums in every high school that can hold as many people as we would like, perhaps. And I don't mean to be the get off my lawn guy, but when I'm a product of the school district, and my graduation was at Skyline High School in the auditorium, and I had 2 tickets to give away, and it was great. And I understand what a big deal graduation is to invite as many family as you possibly can. But I question the value of paying what we pay as a district for these facilities for our graduation exercises.
Yeah, I guess we probably should clarify that currently half the cost of the renting the facilities is picked up by the district, and the other half is generated through this process. How we got to where we're at, I can just tell you, having been here as long as I have been, that part of the challenge that we had previously is we do have a lot of families that want to attend graduation more than just the parents, and it is a big deal for many families. And the other challenge we face is that living in Utah, the weather is quite unpredictable when we hold our graduations, and so it's kind of a challenge to hold them on the football field because sometimes we may have good weather and other times we may not. If you have to move the venue from the football field to indoors last minute, it becomes quite challenging for the graduation committees that are trying to put on the event and make it nice for families. And then parking can become an issue at some of our schools. Not all of our high schools have the ability to handle the parking, let alone seating for everyone. So that's why we moved to these larger venues. If you notice, though, it's not unique to just Granite School District. All the other large districts along the Wasatch Front do the same thing because they've had the same challenges and they've heard from their communities as well. Some of them do it down at UVU. There are some that hold it at Weber. There are some, we choose to do the Huntsman and the Maverick Center, which it took us some cajoling with the Maverick Center to get to where we're at now, but it has worked out nicely. So all I can say is the overall, the feedback that we've received from parents in general is they appreciate being able to take as many of their family members as possible to the event. And when we limit it to either the gym or an auditorium, but there's only really one school in our district that can host it in the auditorium right now, so.
So I have a question just with Justin's. Can they still advertise and get all of those other extra things for graduation? That I just want the kids to know they don't need to get all of those extra things, that the gown is covered.
Yes. So there's an option on the Jostens website there when they go to order them to just get the cap and gown only. So all the students have to put in is their height and weight just to kind of customize the gown that way, and that's the option. And then the other items are optional, which they'd have to pay Jostens for.
Honey, that's a great question, and it's far more clear today than it was 5 years ago. I would even say even 5 years ago, because we made that clear to Jostens that we need to make sure that our patrons and our students know. Now, I'm not going to tell you there aren't students that want all the additional stuff too, but it used to almost feel like they didn't understand that they were going to get the cap and gown unless they bought the additional stuff, and that's not the case now.
And we went that way too. When we upgraded the gowns, we did those customizable gowns. So if you've been to the graduations, everyone has those unique emblems of their high schools too. So we did that for that reason, which is why they cost a little bit more as well.
Before you move on to junior high, sorry, I wanted to just go back, just because in light of what has been talked about, it wasn't covered on this one, but at the bottom of the fee schedule, it talks about student travel per trip. It does say maximum fee includes all potential fundraising, overnight student travel with approval within geographical region. I'm just questioning some of these special exceptions that we do make. Does that fall within the $1,700? And if it doesn't, does that mean they are exempted out of it? Do we need to look at that fee or make an exception for travel outside of the geographical area?
Because it is board policy that we stay within those 6 states, then we've stuck with keeping a maximum that meets that rule. I believe the exception then would still fall within our fee maximum rule unless we made a second exception.
There are also currently stipulated on our travel authorization forms maximums, and we typically haven't allowed folks to go beyond that either. And those have typically matched our fee schedule, but as a board, you have a right to change that if you choose.
So does that make sense? I don't know if you guys understand. If like these kids who are wanting to go to the debate nationals, they can't exceed then according to the $1,700, which means flight, as well as hotel, registration, anything. That includes per diem, right?
Correct.
Because food has to be included in the travel, so.
Unless we make an exception.
But we can make an exception.
But if you make an
No.
exception, the other thing you need to keep in mind is if we approve it and it becomes a school-sponsored activity, then it's also open for fee waiver, regardless of the cost.
Yeah.
So under the law, with the school fees, you can amend your schedule, but the amendment has to go through this very same process that we're going through right now, where you have to have 2 public hearings. So that's not one that you can just waive because it's a policy. You're under statute adopting these, and it takes a little more time to make that adjustment.
So would it be would it be the best to suggest that we have an additional line there that says overnight student travel? What did I read? With, for exceptions, for outside, for, how do we handle that? What would be your recommendation?
Well, have there been, what are the exemptions? Like, we've had students travel to those nationals, so
And have
how did
they
they,
stayed
how
within
did,
that
did they stay
1,700?
within that that?
I don't know, but
dollar
they did,
amount?
but it was within, it's always because of, it's a qualifier event, right? And so they've, their team or their club or whatever has met their requirements to go on and compete nationally. And I think that's kind of important to keep in mind in this discussion related back to what we heard earlier, public comment, is because, we wanted to narrow that geographic area to keep these fees down. That was the whole intent, plus the equity issue, but keeping things fair between networks. But, so I understand what you're saying.
In the past, we've been able to say overnight student travel has been a maximum of like $850. If it goes over that $850, they can fundraise for that additional amount. However, with the change in the law and the wording here, that means that we can only go a maximum of $1,700. So like, for example, the team that we just approved for, I can't remember what it was, Leslie, a couple months ago, the CTE. Are they going to be able to stay within the $1,700 per student?
The CTE, they plan in their budget for a lot of those things.
So they're being supplemented by the CTE department? Is that?
They pay state and national dues, and so they only allow first and second place winners to go, and they pay for them. And then as a district, we support our coaches to go to support them. But theirs is paid for by the CTO.
Okay.
That's wrapped into the fee schedule.
I don't want this to be a barrier to those kids either.
Sure.
But
Well,
I
and-
understand the reason why we've limited it, because we also don't want it to be unfair for everybody district-wide. So how do we, I'm struggling with this.
Same.
And I don't know how do we resolve that?
And it's a little interesting with the passing of 415, House Bill 415, it changes because fundraising comes out of this. So in 25, 26, it comes out of this, so it's like we had this 1 year of, we have to go back and revamp, Craig and I will have to work with Todd on revamping a lot of this for our fee schedules completely.
Is the $3,000 out of pocket the maximum fee cap that includes with travel? Or not?
Yes, it does. Yes, all cost. Yep. And in the past, when we have granted exceptions, they've always stayed within those limits.
The 3,000?
Or we didn't grant it.
Oh.
Yeah.
So they're gonna have to figure out how to make it stay within that. They can't go.
Yes, and I would have to say, since my name was already used in this meeting previously, that when that happened, that was not a team that we sent with an advisor. It was individuals that were granted the ability to fundraise, and then they went on their own with their parents.
Sure. Like I say, my big hangup is that we can't
So
supplement
it wasn't
that.
necessarily considered school sponsored, but what became tricky is they were fundraising at school. So that's why
Yeah.
we stopped doing it in the future.
Right, and that's what I'm understanding. I want to be able to allow that exception for, I don't know if we add a line item that says for exceptions made by the board, we can increase the travel expense to $2,500. Or, I mean, what do we think that would be?
You always have the right to add a line like that in the fee schedule, but that would be up to you. Yeah, I mean, we could add something separate like that in there.
Any other thoughts from anybody else?
Well, I think that if they qualify, I mean, I'm sure there's limits, but to be able, if nationally you know, like Karen even said, that if they were a national, you know, if they earned that honor, then they could do some, you know, we could.
Well, but
I
what,
think,
it
yeah,
has
I
to be
think
stated in
that
here
ought
if we're going to allow it, though, is my understanding, correct? We have to state it in here. if we're going
Correct,
to
it would
allow
need to be included in there, and just for, I was around when we made these adjustments previously, and I remember that part of the reason that the board made these adjustments was because there are quite a few programs that have national competitions. I can give you examples like cheer, have national competitions, but there are also national competitions that are held within those states that you built into the current policy. And what we were finding is that sometimes requests were being made for competitions that were back east or whatnot, which become far more expensive due to the travel cost and accommodations and so forth, where they were a little more affordable within the states that we set. And even within our current debate request, there is a competition held in California, just an FYI.
That's a national competition that they
But I don't think it's a national
earn.
competition. The national competition is in the middle of June, and it is in Des Moines,
There is
Iowa.
one that's recognized
Illinois.
recognized as being similar in nature, that's held in California as well.
So to your specific question, what can be done, this is not the schedule. This is for next school year.
Right.
The request is for this school year, so we'd have to pull up and amend the current schedule to have an exception.
So it
And
doesn't.
we would need basically the next two board meetings to accomplish that.
Okay, so we'd have to amend that schedule, but I'm talking for the future. As this happens in the future, what do we?
So that's a really good question. There's about 6 different issues that the board will have to take on as the new law comes into effect, because the fundraising element comes out of the maxes. The question then becomes, what is the district policy with regards to fundraising besides what we already have in place? Because we have a fundraising policy, and then we have these maximums to establish some equity and control over what's happening. You lose the max part of the discussion. So there's a lot of conversation to go forward and decide what that policy ought to be, which would then could accommodate national competitions, et cetera, et cetera.
Is the max set by us, or is that a state max?
It's ours.
So we could make an exception for the maximum as well as fundraising for national competitions that are approved by the board. Make that as a line item below that, saying that the maximum fee cap can be increased if
Certain
circumstances are met, as well as the maximum overnight student travel.
So just help me understand. If we've had students in the past compete, like in DECA or FBLA, and they've gone to Atlanta or they've gone to Washington, D.C., did they stay within this limits? So it's possible that that is? It depends on where it's at, because that's really the varying factor, right? So
Yeah,
as long
it
as,
depends on quite a few factors. It depends on what the registration fees are, the travel, such
Sure.
as flights, and the hotel accommodations as well.
so it has been doable in the past.
It all
This is not
depends on-
something that's
It
not.
depends on how long the competition is. There's just so many factors.
So then, when you look at those and the students that qualify for those competitions, like, I'm just throwing DECA out there because I do know Cypress went to DECA in 2018 in Atlanta. And so they stayed within these parameters and it was doable, and they sent several students and a advisor. So as long as they're staying in these parameters, they just have to get that extra allowance, like permission, I guess, to go.
Yes, and so what they do is they would typically appeal to their principal. Principal would then make a request to the director, who would bring it to me, and then I take it to you.
Okay.
And we do it, we've done it in a letter previously.
So we can still do that, right?
Yes.
We just need to maybe increase the
Absolutely.
maximum?
Absolutely.
Just
Okay,
a
Rich, real quick,
reminder
and then
that
Jill.
flights are double the cost right now, right?
Yeah.
And that, as John has articulated, that is per the current board policy, that process. And the second hurdle within that policy is what we're talking about right now is student fees. It should be also noted that the student fees, the spend plans, the schedule really was revamped about 5 years ago. So travel that occurred more than 5 years ago, and those exceptions and those across the country type provisions didn't have the same statutory guardrails and expectations that we have today.
We have also added the guidelines that every student needs to have their own bed.
And that was a
Which makes
cost
it
increase,
more-
which made it more expensive.
more
I do
expensive.
understand that. Yeah.
So my proposition, and you guys can agree or disagree, is that we add a line in there that increases the maximum fee cap in accordance with this overnight student travel outside of the geographical area when board permission has been granted as a provision in there, just to enable any teams like this who do desire, and I do want them to be able to fundraise for that. And if we have to include fundraising in there, then let's make sure that they're at least allowed to fundraise, even if that means that we say out-of-pocket expense cannot exceed $1,700 and additional $1,000 can be fundraised in order to accommodate these students. I don't know what your thoughts are.
So that's a new line item?
Yeah, I would just suggest that
I don't see a line item for overnight travel.
it's not on there. You have to look at the actual.
Down and to the right or left?
It's below all of that.
Oh, it's below this. Oh, gotcha.
It's small on this giant page. I tried to zoom in, but it's down at the very bottom. We are just not making a change to that, but the overnight travel currently is at 1,700 max.
So is that's a motion?
We're in an
Well,
information item, but I would
we can't-
suggest that we perhaps.
I'm
Look at
interested
that.
in doing that as well.
I'm interested.
And exactly, so that we can go and work on some language and work on
maybe
that maximum.
ask-
Bring that back for the March
next
12th
week.
meeting.
Yeah,
And
for
maybe-
next week.
And ask some of our advisors who
Or
are in this
19th meeting,
position
excuse me.
what
But we
that would.
19th.
we can also approve it as a first reading with some knowledge that we're going to, can we?
Well, we're not approving it. This is an information item.
Oh, I thought this had, we approve it next week.
That's correct.
Oh,
Statutorily,
okay.
you
I
just
thought we
need
had to have a
two
first and a second reading.
presentations, two public comment opportunities, and then you take action after those two meetings.
For the current year, for those that were asking this year, it would all depend. We don't know what the cost is yet. It may fit within what you currently have outlined, and if so, there would be no need for a change, yeah. If it doesn't, then we would need to bring it to you for the two readings like Todd mentioned.
Okay. So I'm just saying for the future, we can tackle that problem separately later. But I just want to make sure that we have this provision for future.
Yeah, and we'll reach out to those principals tomorrow and get with those programs to try to figure out what the cost would be, so we'll know ASAP
Okay,
on that.
thank you. Go ahead.
So just for context, too, and some consideration. So when students go to nationals, they can also then qualify for Worlds. And Worlds are in Vietnam this year. So at some point you have to.
Sign me up.
I was going to say, that's why I'm looking at you, Chris. So at some point there needs to be some consideration to say what does this, where does it stop? Where is the line, right, in terms of what that travel looks like? And to be honest with you, some of that national and international travel that became excessive is the very reason why the legislature got involved and put the guardrails around the fee schedule, student fees, and some of the travel stipulations per some of those issues.
And I understand that, but we're still seeing the inequality because you've got the parents who can't afford to do it all by themselves, and we're now not allowing teams to even fundraise for it in the capacity that they're able to. I can understand us saying, no international travel, you will not, we're not going to, let's put those guardrails in there. But I don't want that to be an inequality that we have some schools and some teams or some parents who, well, I can take my kid, so I'm going to take my kid and go, and then other teams who would desperately like to do that and be able to fundraise, and then this be the thing that is in their way, so.
With Just an FYI, with debate though, those that qualify, it's generally individual, not necessarily team.
Sure.
But Doug had a point that he needed to clarify, and I think he says it better than I can, so I'm going to go ahead and let him take the mic.
Well, I was just saying that you can still pass the fee schedule on a first reading with the amendment if that's what you want to do. Well, we're still going to do a first reading tonight, aren't we? Oh, I thought we were doing a first reading tonight.
So we go through a 2-meeting public comment period. This is the first public comment period.
There's no vote tonight.
No vote.
Yeah, very good.
Okay, we'll let you guys mess with that. Thank you. Sorry to throw a wrench in there.
Thank you. We're going to go on to the junior high.
Go for it.
Hopefully junior highs will be a little easier. So some of these are similar, couple changes to match the high school, but the first change we've made is the verbiage to career and technical education intro class to the college and career and readiness class. It's called CCA class we have. Changing that and then removing the verbiage of other career technical education to just read a career and technical education. The fee stays the same on that, just the name change on those. To match the high schools for the PE physical education classes, it used to be $10, changing that to $15 to help with the cost of equipment and supplies there. Also adding to the junior high fee schedule, world language, that up to $15 maximum fee, so they can do cultural type celebrations in the class, and a lot of our DLI classes have liked to do those cultural items as well. And then also to match the high school schedule would be changing those names to the Granite Junior Intermediate, or Granite from Granite Junior, U Symphony, the intermediate, and Nicole will go back and check on that one just to check those names, but matching those fees as well to go to the $70 and then the $85 for that. Also splitting up our camps, so we have our sports camp, and then we have our district-run performing arts camps also at $90 to help with the materials, those disposable items that the teachers use for those camps as well. Any questions on? I would actually just change the name down at the bottom from drama to performing arts, fine arts festivals, because there's a lot of different groups that do our festivals at our junior highs, and so allowing all those performing arts and fine arts groups to have that festival fee. Any questions with those? All right, one change we changed to the non-waivable fees. We needed to make sure we included this on. With post-pandemic, a lot of our schools have gone to one-to-one on their Chromebooks, and so with that, there's some costs involved where kids damage some of those Chromebooks. Some of it is accidental, some of it we have purpose, but our educational technology department came up with this, and we've been using this, but we wanted to put it in there so it was on the fee schedule so you can see the cost for each one of those. So we have two different types of Chromebooks. We have a touchscreen for a full replacement would be $300 if the student damaged or just vandalized that. For a non-touchscreen, $270. The charger is $26. A screen is the school discretion, $28 if it's not predetermined amount. The bezel, which is the frame around the screen, is $27. Top case $36, bottom case $36. The keyboard is $87, and the Chromebook hinge for our current G8s, G9s is $5. So just adding that in so it's on the non-waivable fees and fines. Any questions there? Okay. And there's no proposed changes for the elementary schedule for this year, next year. So those are our changes we'd like to propose for the 2024-2025 fee schedule.
And as Todd said, that's the first reading, so it's just for your preview, and then we will present again to you with the adjustments you've recommended next week.
I apologize. May I ask one additional clarifying question? On the maximum fee cap, it talks about that it applies to 3 co-curricular or extracurricular activities. So is the cap on 3 activities, or is the cap 3,000? Meaning if a student were to play 4 sports, are they capped after having paid for those first 3, or are they capped at $3,000?
The way my understanding, Todd, maybe you can explain that better. I don't know. Well, it should be the maximum that they are being able to be charged for the year.
It's $1 It's
So
a dollar
It has nothing to do
limit.
with the number of activities.
Correct.
It's dollars.
What it essentially turns into is if you're a fourth competitor, you've probably gotten very close to the 3,000, and so you're now in a waiver situation for the balance of your competition.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that presentation. That was super helpful, and we'll, I think, hear from you again next week, it sounds like. So
Yes.
thank you so much. We'll open it for public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to the school fee schedule for 2024-25? Yes. Okay.
All right.
Looks like there's no public comment.
Go for it. Go ahead. So we're going to close public comment and move on. Thank you. Sorry to give you a hard time. It's always me. I apologize. All right, we're going to let Doug take the mic and go over our second readings.
Okay, we have board members, thank you for having me, and we've got 2 second readings tonight. The first one is our student memorial and tributes policy. This is Article 5C17. Once again, this policy is intended to govern requests for memorials and tributes in schools. This is in the event of an unfortunate accident or death of a student. And there's a great deal of research that goes around that has been done on the impacts of memorials and tributes to students. And in order to govern that in the most appropriate way, we have put forward this policy. This policy has not been modified at all since the first reading, and I present it to you for your consideration for second reading.
All right, this is the second and final reading. Anybody like to make a motion?
I motion that we accept Article 5C17, Student Memorials and Tributes, as a second reading. And final reading.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept Article 5C17, Student Memorials and Tributes, as a second and final reading. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Okay, great. The second reading is Article 9A3L. This is personnel files and medical records. This is an ongoing effort that we have engaged in to try to combine and consolidate our human resources policies. We've combined 3 policies into this one policy. This will govern how we maintain personnel files and medical records. Again, there were no modifications suggested during the first reading, and I present it to you on a second reading.
I move that we approve as a second and final reading Article 9A3, is that a 1 or an L?
L.
L, personnel files and medical records.
I think we approved it as a 1 last time.
I'll second.
It looks like a 1 on the agenda, so is it an L or a 1?
I can double check.
Did you say second and final reading?
Yeah, she did.
It's an
Sorry,
L.
I just want to make sure.
Hence my question, because it looks like a 1, but I noticed when you read the original policy,
me a
you said
second.
L.
With that font.
Come on, Rich, I know you have these all memorized. Is that an L or a 1?
It is an L.
Are we ready?
Getting a little punchy, it's after 10 o'clock.
Stacy may have
That's
mistyped
correct.
it. I
It's
just
an
want to double check that we have it right.
I double checked. It's an L.
Is it
It's
L?
an L, okay, thank you.
Okay, so Article 9A3L.
All right. So we had Julie, oh, Connie seconded it. Okay, I apologize. Oh, Clark seconded it. Somebody with a CK sounding name seconded it. Sorry. We have a motion and a second to approve Article 9A3L, personnel files and medical records as a second and final reading. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. And with that, we will go, thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
We'll turn it over to Superintendent for a superintendent report.
Thank you, Madam President, and I'll be brief given the lateness of the hour. I did want to point out a few things, metrics that we monitor. And as we think about March, April, and May, we're on the downward stretch of the school year and looking to finish strong. But a lot of good work happening this year. We've seen an increase in the percentage of students above benchmark in literacy in elementary. That's a great sign, and similarly, we've seen a decrease in the percentage of students that are below benchmark. This is proficiency in that literacy space, so we have some great early and mid-year type indicators that are suggesting that we're making improvements there. Along with that literacy space in kindergarten K-5, we also monitor what are called pathways of progress. Every student has a target of progress that they're looking to make. And similarly, we've seen a decrease in the percentage of students that are well below making their pathways of progress. And we've seen an increase in students that are above typical and well above typical achievement in their pathways of progress. So we're seeing some great movement there. We still have a lot of work to do. Junior highs, we're also seeing some improvements across their academics, but particularly in the literacy growth space that they measure regularly. For the high school, we have an increase in the number of students on track for graduation in grades 9, 10, 11, and 12 over this same period last year. So we're seeing some improvements there on that. Word of caution, though, and something we continue to struggle with is student attendance. And when you think of a regular attender, it's the 90%. A student is attending 90% or more of the days. And so when you think about a 180-day school year, if you're missing more than 2 days a month, then you're considered not a regular attender. And we have significant reasons to be concerned. Schools are doing a great job reaching out, making the phone calls, providing for attendance trackers, working with families, or home visits even, to identify what obstacles exist in keeping our children from coming to school regularly. Our data also supports that, if you recall, and we're seeing it already as we're tracking some of the chronic absenteeism. When a student misses less than 90% of instruction, then the students that fall into that category, they're generally 10 to 15 points below their peers that are attending regularly, which stands to reason. So we're going to continue on that. To make the board aware, we'll send you out a calendar invite. As you know, we've been partnering with the University of Utah in a program, Principal Leadership Academy. This is the second cohort that's gone through that. We did a little bit differently this year, where we had 10 principals bring teacher teams, 3 to 4 individual teachers, to go through this professional learning. They identified a problem of practice and have been very intentional over the course of the last several weeks, almost 17 sessions, as taught by professors from the College of Education at the University of Utah and their Eccles Business School in providing instruction for what does it look like for school improvement and identifying strategies to help in that regard. They will, on March 20th, from 4:30 to 6:30, just arrange this with the University of Utah, come here, and we'll send you out the calendar invite, where you'll hear these principals and teachers present what their problems of practice have been and how they've been intentional in making very specific, school-specific improvements that impact student outcomes. And so a little more detail on that in the calendar invite that will be sent your way. And with that, Madam President, concludes my report.
Thank you. Just so you know, we did get that invite, and if you guys all look on your calendar, you have that on March 20th. Just be aware of that.
Thank you.
All right, Julie.
We had a USBA regional meeting, and what I want you to know about that is that Rich and Chris and Connie and I and Todd made goals for all of you while we were there. The goal is that we are going to reach out to every candidate who will represent us and ask them if they'd like to invite them to come in to talk about our schools. And if they accept that invitation, then whoever that person would represent will also be invited to that meeting. We're going to do this before the primaries. So that's the plan. So expect that you will get that, when you get that invite, know that that's what it is. Okay.
Kim, do you have anything?
Don't have anything to report, but just a heads up, our next district community council will be this week, Thursday. I think there was a slight miscommunication about it being canceled, so just being clear that it is not canceled for anyone listening, and will happen on Thursday. Thanks. District Community Council.
At Olympus Junior High School at 6 o'clock.
Okay. I failed to mention, this is kind of, it goes along with board report though, because I'm on Region PTA. We granted the Linda Mariotti Literacy Grant to William Penn Elementary and Magnet Elementary, and I got to go and deliver those checks with their certificate. And so I just want to thank Region PTA for sponsoring that and making sure that got distributed. So I just wanted to report on that. And then my other, actually that's it. Thanks.
Karen?
Just a quick report on Benefits Committee. Benefits Committee right now is kind of tasked with hard tasks because we all know we're living in a world of inflationary costs, and unfortunately medical fields and medical benefits and coverage is not immune to that. And so that's something that they're grappling with, and as a committee they're discussing and trying to figure out how to navigate those costs that are rising. So I didn't really send an email out because I figured I would just sum it up in 2 sentences here. So there you go. So that's just something that is on all of our minds on the Benefits Committee.
I have nothing further.
All right, and the only thing I have, I apologize, I did not get out our our leadership report this week. I had 6 concerts between my kids and myself, so my apologies. But I will send you, please look for it. I will send you the update for the study session. It is a study session next week because, as you remember, we moved this meeting due to caucuses. So just be aware of that and look for that. So I promise I will do that.
Question, are we still going to, in April, the first week in April?
It is on, it's the day after we get back.
Right, that's what I wondered.
We have that, yes, we have that scheduled.
We just have 3 walking
We have 3
So to speak into the microphone, the question that's being asked is when is April's board meeting, and it's April 9th.
It's April 9th.
April 9th, yeah.
With study session being on the 23rd.
And we do, Julie and Chris will be coming back late from New Orleans, and Kim will be on a vacation, but she did say that she may be able to get online. So we should still have a quorum, but we are planning on that.
Good, thank you.
All right, with that, that is, I think, all we have.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?